Well, the summer exploded into life over the course of the weekend, and as ever, Mayo are the biggest storyline / punchline, depending on what part of the country you're from. The rumours that Nathan Murphy is not showing up for work this week are not true. I want to nail those rumours that I may have started myself because he's actually on holidays. He had planned his holidays. He knew in advance that the humiliation was coming this week at the hands of the Roscommon footballers in Mayo. Is it their first win since the 60s there?
60s or 70s.
I mean, that's in the 50s. It's their first win for the 50s. We'll split the difference. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Huge. Like, we may as well actually start with Roscommon if you want, because we're going to get into Mayo, I dare say, quite a bit over the next couple of hours this morning.
We've got the whole summer to talk about Roscommon, but this may be our last chance to talk about Mayo.
Oh, God, I didn't think it would be you that would be sticking the boot in this morning first.
No, I'm not. You know, I love the Mayo footballers. You know, I think they're the most compelling narrative in Irish sport over the last 2 decades.
Yeah, Joe Brawley said the same thing last night on TV.
No, he's stealing my lines, is he? All right.
Not the most compelling line, but the fact that they are very entertaining to watch. Saying that in his sneering manner while absolutely slaughtering them. So is that what you've always used as your way to kind of sneer them, this line that they are?
No, I love the Mayo footballers, and I love the team, and I love their willingness to keep coming back when, you know, lesser human beings would have decided that we're going to take up golf or hurling or something different. Let's get good at Olympic handball. Let's be the best at Olympic handball in the country.
If Mayo win the All-Ireland from this position, it will be one of the most spectacular sporting achievements we've seen in Ireland.
Yeah.
Because not only will it be coming from the ebb that they've seemed to have arrived at already, but it's also because of who they will have beaten to get there, or because of what they will have stopped this summer to win this year's All-Ireland. I don't think it's as dire as some people...
It's not dire at all, really, is it?
No.
So they might have to beat Monaghan at some point in the qualifiers.
Yeah,
Qualifiers are open draw, right?
They are open draw.
So the only good team... And the only good team up to the last round of the qualifiers, who you would say would have a really good chance. I mean, obviously, we didn't realise Roscommon had a chance of beating Roscommon 5-1, as tipped by Kieran Donaghy on the show last week. Who else is actually, would you really say, is going to potentially knock this Mayo team out?
Like, Monaghan really is the... Like, you've got the Donegal-Tyrone provincial semi-final as well, which is an absolute disaster if they draw one of them. And also as well, you'll have the Ulster final loser, Armagh or Cavan. If Armagh end up beating Cavan and Cavan get thrown into the back door and you get an away draw to Breffni Park after what we saw last week, that's not where you want to go. That being said, Mayo getting to round 4 of a qualifier this year should be okay. You just don't know, but the round 4 qualifiers coming up against provincial loser is usually good news for somebody coming through the back door. Like, everything that you can say about Mayo this year could be said in previous years. Do they have the legs to go through the long, circuitous route that is the qualifiers? And
who knows?
Like, that is the thing. Who knows? I do have this nagging doubt that that image of Cathal Craig just storming past Keith Higgins might be the image that is the most significant from the weekend. Not the image of Rob Henley kicking the ball straight into Roscommon hands that caused a Roscommon goal. That's an error. Mistakes happen. Not the idea of Conor Cox firing over worldies left, right and centre. That happens. But it is the idea that perhaps these old legs have finally met their match. And I really wish that's not the case, because like you, I want to see this team succeed. I want to see the players succeed. And I want to see them back, because I think they are as good as anything we've got in the country in terms of a team that's able to stop Dublin this year or to give us a championship. But I do wonder if we're going to see that again in the qualifiers, and I would be seriously worried if they drew Monaghan at some stage, or if they drew Cavan, or if they drew Donegal or Tyrone, obviously.
I think that it's actually better for them if they draw the good teams and the crap teams, because they
play down to everybody. Like.
Exactly. They've definitely had a history of winning those qualifier games after extra time in matches against Division 3 and Division 4 teams. You're like, what happened there? But it's just that they couldn't get up themselves. If they got Monaghan, for example, or if they had to go to Cavan, I'd be like, well, there will be hype before that game in a way that there wouldn't have in previous seasons, because we're waiting for this Mayo team now to, repeat the dose from last year when they got beaten by a Kildare team who aren't very good, it turns out. Mm-hmm. And so...
Well, to be fair, missing a couple of players this year, that Kildare team, like... I wonder, have we misjudged Mayo as a whole over the last couple of years? That I wonder, was their thing going toe-to-toe with Dublin? That they found their way in those situations. Like, I know Kieran Whelan was making the comparison between them and the great Dublin team, not the great, the OK Dublin team of the noughties last night. And I think that's a rather apt description, because that Dublin team had the ability to take out a Tyrone here or there, or they had the ability to kind of to play up big enough opposition.
Is he not giving that Dublin team too much credit?
Maybe he is.
I actually think this Mayo team is way. So, for a start, that Dublin team wasn't. I don't know. It didn't. So there was the 1 year in 2002 when the width of the posts against Armagh, but like, were they ever really other contenders other than that? I mean, remember they were killing Mayo in an All-Ireland semi-final and they choked.
Okay, maybe that comparison is a little bit misplaced. I'm kind of thinking of like the 2017 All-Ireland semi-final when they got the job done and they'd beaten Kerry for the first time in 20-something years, and they'd got that big result, but then ended up not turning that big result into an All-Ireland championship, not turning it into Sam Maguire. And maybe the comparison begins and ends there, but like, I agree that there's a certain tenuous nature to it. But like, have we misjudged Mayo? Have we automatically said because they are the team that were best able to beat Dublin, they are head and shoulders above the rest of the country? Like, really, Dublin wouldn't come close to that result on Saturday night. They wouldn't allow that to happen whatsoever. And like, maybe that's a question of game management. Maybe that's a question of the quality in the Mayo team. Maybe we've just misjudged this quality. And like, that is not a huge slight against Mayo. It's actually to do with the fact that we're judging them against what is possibly the greatest football team of all time. And that is unfair on Mayo. We have come to expect that they will put in Dublin-esque performances every single year. And it's just not possible because they're just nowhere near as good as Dublin.
Yeah. I mean, they're not as... It's a weird starting point for conversation. Like, I don't think we overrated them. I think they were definitely the second best team in the country, and maybe time. Maybe that's it. And so maybe that time has passed, and this is a transitional team, and they don't have the strength of depth that we thought they had on the back of the league campaign. There was a lot of Schadenfreude around. I mean, there was definitely a lot of Galway fans celebrating. I think Galway were the big winners at the weekend. I think everybody else other than Mayo were big winners. There was a lot of talk about the trip to New York as if they were the first team who's gone over there and fundraised. They're the first team who went over there and told everybody they were fundraising and publicised it and had the crack in public, as opposed to every other county who goes over there and does exactly the same thing but doesn't meet up for a sing-song in Times Square.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that is one of the things that really annoyed me after Saturday night. The people giving out to Mayo fans for enjoying themselves over in New York.
Imagine you're a supporter of a team. How dare you support that team in public?
Also, one of the worst takes of the entire year has been people giving out about Mayo fans enjoying the league final. Like, what a ridiculous notion that they would actually go out and celebrate winning a national title. And people will say, oh, they celebrated too hard and now it's had an impact in Castlebar. Absolute nonsense. Like, they were delighted to win that National League, and fair play to them. If they win the All-Ireland this year, chances are it'll be down to that. If they don't win the All-Ireland this year, chances are it'll be down to that as well. Who knows? You can write the narrative in whatever way you want. But I think, like, if the Mayo fans step out of line, I'll make sure to let you know that they've stepped out of line. But like, the way they've enjoyed this year, to use that as a stick to beat them with in hindsight now, because they lost by 1 point to a Division 1 team, or a team that played in Division 1 this year, I think is borderline ridiculous. And that's one thing that's really annoyed me. Like, I was kind of saying to you last day, I did feel like a Stark at the Red Wedding after the National League final in the Croke Park Hotel when the Green and Red of Mayo was playing on loop. I was angry, really pissed off, but that doesn't mean I was like, they shouldn't be celebrating. Of course they should be celebrating. It was their moment, and it could be one of a number of moments this year. Who knows?
Yeah, turned out you were wrong. It was the one moment they were going to have this year. We think. Are you writing them off?
I'm very worried, yeah. Very, very worried. Like, you saw my power rankings, I had them as a second team in the country. I'm worried about their prospects this year.
If that last free, which should have gone over, goes over...
Well, that's the thing.
Then it goes to extra time, and they squeak out a win, and everybody goes, "Wow, that was great!" You know, turns out Roscommon are really good. Do you know, like
they couldn't keep the ball over the bar from dead ball, and they gifted Roscommon a goal. Yeah. Like, ultimately, they're two huge fixes. They're two easy fixes.
Yeah.
Get Killian O'Connor fit. Either make a change in goals or ensure that Rob Henley.
Keeping Killian for the Galway game.
Well, that's that was one of the rumours doing the Mail. Like that, there was no truth in that really, but there were so many glaring errors that, in a strange way, they were easier to fix. The one positive for Mayo, and I know we've spoken about them quite a bit throughout the year, is just midfield. They seem to have got through the issues that they've had injury-wise last year to come up with Aidan O'Shea and Matthew Moran in 8 and 9, who are superb. And I was just watching it, and after Mayo went a couple of points up, to be honest with you, I started getting ahead of myself, thinking that they could run out winners here at a canter, and I was thinking, I really, really want to see these two boys go up against the Dublin midfield at some point this summer. Hopefully it'll happen.
How much credit are you taking as a Kerry man and Kerry generally for Roscommon's victory?
Oh, you know,
All of it.
the conveyor belt that churned Conor Cox out literally, where he couldn't get into the Kerry team or was dropped from the Kerry squad. That's how much credit. That was revenge.
And was that a good decision in retrospect by Kerry to let an inter-county forward of that talent slip through their grasp?
At the time, it seemed like a decision that nobody really paid much heed to. Like, nobody really thought that he would show up in Roscommon, to be fair. I think it was 2014 the last time he actually started a game for Kerry. I think he came on as a sub in the 2016 league for a couple of games. Don't think he started any championship game. And very, very talented guy, and just wasn't good enough to cut it or to be a consistent part of the matchday squad that was going to play in the team. But like that being said, he did start in the league in 2014. That team would go on to win the All-Ireland. So he's pretty high calibre. Nobody would ever suggest that. He's good enough to play Division 1 football for sure. And I think maybe a lot of people in the county were looking towards the future rather than looking at somebody who might be close to his peak.
All right, if anybody wants to drop us a comment on any of the stuff that we're talking about, in particular Roscommon's ability to play the transfer market quite well, then you can just leave a comment wherever you're watching this morning. You can watch us on YouTube, on Facebook, and of course on Periscope. You can tweet the show at Off The Ball or at Off The Ball AM. In fact, it's probably the best one for us this morning. You can just use the hashtag OTB AM. And indeed, if you just want to listen to this as a radio show, then feel free to do that as well. Log on to offtheball.com, click the listen live button at the top of the site on your phone, and you can just be listening to us like we're a breakfast radio show. Now, before we get to the newspapers, I want to play you this. Davy Fitz obviously had a pretty eventful day out in Pearse Stadium, still fired up when he briefly spoke to Maura Trassa after the game.
When you were sent off the sideline, what was said to you?
Listen, that's the second time in a row that we have had a fella taken out off the ball. It happened in the last one here as well, yet there seems to be one rule for one set of management and another for another. So I'm actually ceding at the officials again. Didn't abuse him. I was making my point quite clearly that our lad was taken out off the ball. They ended up getting a score, and that's not right.
To be devil's advocate, they would say that either it happened off the ball, they didn't see it, or they did the best decision that they saw at the time.
I think that's not the truth. Hi, hold on. Being honest now, you're giving me too many hard questions and I'm not interested in answering that stupid one.
Well, it's not a stupid question. I'm just being devil's advocate. Bye, Davy. Swan.
More from that a little bit later on. So here's what's coming up on the show today. Sports pages right now. Round up with the best stuff that you might have missed over the course of the weekend. Some other stories that caught our fancy. Our GA roundup. We're going to go around the grounds and talk to our various pundits in the aftermath of the games of the weekend. Liam Griffin's going to inject a bit of sense into the proceedings this morning and tell us where he thinks Wexford are currently after their second draw in the Leinster Hurling Championship. Still unbeaten, and they still have Carlow to come, so they're going to win that game, and they're going to be right there or thereabouts at the end of the business end. So it looks like, you know, if you were to, would you be making them favourites to go through? I don't know. It's up for grabs is a fair way to describe things in Leinster at the moment. Alan Quinlan's going to join us at around about 8:45 to look back on the Leinster and Ireland career. It appears at this stage of Sean O'Brien, who's out for the next 6 months because of hip surgery, and is going to miss the Rugby World Cup, which is disastrous news really from an Ireland perspective, because we needed him to be at his world-beating best. One last Indian sower from him if we were going to have any chance, it looks like, really, of making the semi-finals. So are our chances of making the semi-finals of the Rugby World Cup gone with the fact that Sean O'Brien is out, with Dan Levy out, with now no strength and depth at the number 7 spot, and Sports News with Phil coming around about 9, who did warn us as well that every time he goes to a wedding in Mayo and Mayo happen to be playing football, they lose. And they lost this weekend. He was at a wedding in Mayo. Time for the papers. My first one here this morning is more Davy Fitz. Davy Fitz is kind of the lead. You'll see a pattern evolving here. Fitzgerald draws no comfort as Wexford recover against Galway, and that's him being sent to the stands. And then curtain falling on O'Brien's international career. There's a general consensus that he won't play for London Irish and for Ireland at the same time.
The Irish Examiner goes with Davy as well. It's a great picture here on the front of their sports supplement. Anger management reads the headline. Seething Davy fires biased broadside after Salt Hill dismissal. Primrose Power then is our headline on the football. Joy for Roscommon, what now for Mayo? And Shkodran Mustafi has been in the media ahead of the Europa League final.
Yeah, I think, is that tab of the morning? Anger management?
Anger management. Well, It's a decent bar. It's a good start. Let's see where we go from here.
Injury rules O'Brien out of World Cup. This is the story in the Times Ireland edition.
There's a fantastic tab in the morning coming to you, is basically what I'm saying.
Funding worry after Minister slams Mooney. So the FAI and the government are at loggerheads again after Shane Ross, the Minister for Sport, slammed a move to draft in former employee Noel Mooney to run the embattled organisation. Shane Ross took to his old stomping ground, the Sunday Independent, yesterday to write about Mooney. Mooney of the old regime was appointed an FAI loyalist to his fingertips. He may have many talents, but he's one of the last people on God's earth suitable for this job. There is no going back for the FAI. Going to Noel Mooney is going back to the dark ages. We objected in no uncertain terms in a tense, face-to-face meeting with the FAI.
Oh.
Are you supposed to tell everybody about all your meetings when you're the minister? Because if you are, let's wait and see how this whole thing plays out. Because, Shane Ross on News Talk months ago, would have been around last October, November, said that all was well with the FAI. That the grassroots, as far as he was concerned, thought the FAI were doing a great job. He's changed his tune, hasn't he?
The shocking developments have rumbled the Department of Sport as much as they've rumbled us, clearly. And at least I'm glad that he didn't just launch the broadside in the media, and he actually went face to face and made his distaste known to them as well.
Yeah.
It'd be terrible to sling from the ditches. The back page of the Irish Independent this morning is, "I'm going to fight for every single thing I honestly believe in." That's a quote from Davy Fitz squaring up with the official yesterday. He's proud of Wexford's comeback to earn a point in Galway, and Schmidt's options narrow as O'Brien World Cup dreams end, and struggling Lilies lucky to live to fight another day. Your boys really hate Tullamore.
Yeah, it's not great, is it?
No, this weekend last year they were licking their wounds after that Carlow defeat. At least this year.
Is the replay in Tullamore?
Good question. I don't know.
Hermosa completes Guineas double in style for Maestro of Ballydoyle. This is Hermosa winning the 1,000 guineas at the Curragh on Sunday. The 2,000 guineas on Saturday was won by an outsider, tipped by John Duggan on Friday Night Racing. O'Brien blow, hip injury rules top flanker out of World Cup. Joe Schmidt has suffered a World Cup injury blow with veteran flanker Sean O'Brien ruled out of the tournament in Japan with a hip injury. So a bit of a disaster. He obviously has already signed his deal to go to London Irish. Not great for them either. Davy Fitz stands his ground, and City vowed to prove their racist critics wrong. Manchester City chief Khaldoon Al-Mubarak has vowed the club will win their war with UEFA and launched a searing attack on City's critics, saying that racism is at the centre of what's going on.
The Herald goes with this. Door open for Dermo. Gavin expects one or two fellas to join Dublin panel. Could Diarmuid Connolly be in that one or two? Could it be you, Diarmuid? Could he be the lucky man selected from the clubs over these next couple of days? Of course, Jim Gavin didn't mention Diarmuid Connolly by name, but was asked if anybody would come into the Dublin panel over the next couple of weeks. He says he's going to have a look at one or two club players.
Right.
Diarmuid Connolly is a club player.
That's true.
So Diarmuid Connolly is in the frame.
Yeah. I mean, do they need him now? Cormac Costello looks like he's stepping up.
No, Cormac Costello hit the post with that free, and so he's finished.
I've never
seen a person so sickened after scoring a point, because the only free he missed hit the post, but he caught the rebound and put it over the bar. It's kind of like
still goes down as a miss.
Kind of like a 7-footer catching his own free throw. Still goes down as a miss. It's true, but just as the juxtaposition was kind of terrifying, really, as Mayo fell apart at the seams because Cillian O'Connor wasn't there to tap the ball over the bar. Dean Rock was missing, and Cormac Costello scores 112.
Front page of the Star, which I'm just going to do this one. Davy Fitz.
There you go. Top of the morning to you.
It's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, you're not going to beat that this morning.
No, in fairness. But they wasted it on the front page, really. It should have been on the back page, because the back is reffing mad.
I think it's on the front of their championship supplement as well.
Is it? Okay, they used it twice then, okay.
I think so, I'm not sure.
In fairness, I'll try and dig out the championship supplement.
No?
Draw and order.
Oh, that's good.
There you go.
We'll come back to that in a moment.
Yeah, okay. So top marks to the Star subs yesterday. Neil looking for 9. Neil Lennon last night insisted winning 9 in a row next season will matter more to Celtic than making the Champions League. Just lowering expectations a little bit and making sure that, it's actually not that important. There's this other historic 9 in a row thing that we need to do. And then Ross in blast at FAI Chief Mooney. So whatever hope that the FAI had that things were going to calm down a little bit when Noel Mooney took the reins, it's not going to happen. Basically, there's a full war underway between Shane Ross and the FAI at the minute, and sports bodies tend not to win wars against governments unless, of course, maybe there's a reshuffle and Ross gets booted out of there. Who knows?
The Racing Post goes with Hermosa on the front page. Hermosa strikes again, winning the 1,000 guineas double at the Curry yesterday. And then the back page of the Racing Post is from despair to nearly there. It's Jack Grealish pictured there as Villa ready to end Wembley heartbreak. It's a 3 o'clock kickoff this afternoon between Villa and Derby in the richest game in football.
Yeah.
Confident?
No, not really. You can't be confident ahead of these. They're crazy. I'll tell you how good my sporting. I missed most of the sport this weekend because I was away for everything. But I did.
You're saving yourself for this afternoon.
I did come in with 90 and a half minutes on the clock in the Division 1 playoff final, and I watched a minute and a half, and there was a chance, and the ball got cleared, and I went, this is definitely going to extra time, and turned it off.
Oh no, that was an incredible finish.
But I watched it and I was going to watch the last minute of this now. I had to go and do something. I was just going to sit here and watch the last minute of it. And something weird is always going to happen in these games. And the ball got hacked, cleared. I was like, no, that's it now. That's the last chance.
Given everything that's happened in football over the past 3 weeks, you can be sure and certain that this afternoon's championship final is going to be a disappointment. It just has to be. Because it is the only game that guarantees excitement every single year. The only way it could skew things further is by it being a drab affair. Yeah,
there'll be a 4-3. It'll be a 4-3, and somebody will come back from 3-0 down. That's my prediction.
If that actually happens, you'll be more mystic than Mystic Kieran Donaghy, who's on a roll of predictions at the moment. I'm going to move on to The Guardian. It's a picture of Lewis Hamilton and his quote from yesterday saying, Nicky was with me racing today. Britain pays tribute to mentor after Monaco triumph. And injury blow for Chelsea. N'Golo Kante is going to miss the final in Baku this Wednesday night. Rod
Stewart was paying tribute to Liam Miller in his gig last night. There's a picture of him there. Put him up on his... Put him up on the big screen. Rod's Corker tribute to tragic soccer star Miller. So Rod Stewart obviously playing at Porky Cleeve at the weekend. And then finally from me for now, I think the Denny Weir, I missed the Sun story as well. Smith agony, dementia means my dad doesn't even know I'm Villa boss. Dean Smith's dad has dementia. Furious Fitz dismissed. Injury rules O'Brien at a World Cup. No go N'Golo. Blues rocked as Keyman faces Baku KO. So he's not going because he's injured as opposed to any other issues around that. And there you go. Toon 350 million shake-up. Ashley deal with City owner's cousin. And the £180 million game is the one tonight. Aston Villa versus Derby, 3 o'clock rather. It stands and fight for Fitz.
You did well to get that out in one go.
Why?
It's a tongue twister, isn't it?
Stands and fight for Fitz.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Jealousy, hypocrisy and racism. So, I don't know. The Sun subs, not at the races compared to the Star subs today.
Well, it's 1-0 to them this week. We're going to move on to some of the online stuff we saw this week, and as they led with in the Star Championship supplement this morning, the story of Garda Darren Gallagher, who was on duty yesterday. He scored 222 during the league, but hasn't been allowed to play for Longford this summer. Here's a couple of images of him at O'Connor Park yesterday, directing traffic some 400 metres away from Longford versus Kildare. Of course, should be playing for Longford, but is going to America, and because you move to the States, you're not allowed to play championship anymore. It's a rule they brought in a few years ago, or recently enough anyway.
Or if you play championship, you're not allowed to go to the States.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to, on one side of the fence you have people saying it's a disgrace, people should be allowed to play for their county regardless and they should be allowed to move to the States at will, and then other people are like, well, actually, if they're allowed to do that, then what's to stop them actually leaving later in the summer or leaving mid-championship?
Do you think anybody thought that people would stop playing for their counties rather than go to the States?
No.
Do you think that this is like the complete opposite of what everybody thought would happen?
Yes.
And do you think it makes a complete mockery of the rule?
Yes.
And so shouldn't some accommodation be made somewhere? Doesn't this just point to the bullshit that is the championship?
Well, exactly.
Like,
you've got this is definitely the most ridiculous sort of image we've got of how the championship is screwed up. That there's actually a guard on duty.
This would have been their most famous.
Half a kilometre away.
This would have been their most famous victory. Like, really? I mean, they beat Mayo, did they?
Longford. Well, they beat Mayo in 2009, knocking them out of the championship. They beat Monaghan in 2016, which was a huge win in the Black Door. They beat Meath last year at Leinster. Longford have got their fair share of scalps. We had Brian Kavanagh in on the Saturday panel on Saturday, actually, and he was talking about that Mayo game in 2009 and the glorification of the Longford players that day, and kind of chatting about the two-tier championship. He was like, that is their moment, that backdoor scalp, rather than the idea of actually going on to win a second-tier trophy. There might be something to put to Kieran Donaghy this week in the shot clock, but clearly these one-off games are huge things for the Longford players, and Garda Darren Gallagher was missing that. We want to move to politics. A couple of stories that caught our attention. The first one from a polling card in the West. Spoiled vote. Mayo for Sam. Congratulations to Robert Michael Foley, who got the fourth preference. And, of course, Owen Nail and Fianna Fáil, who got the second preference. And, actually, Michael O'Sullivan, who got the number one preference.
I mean, if I'm Michael O'Sullivan, I'm sitting there, hang on a second, that says one. Everybody knows you put one in. It's just the rest of them are a joke. I'm taking the number one.
Yeah, I think there's a closet Labour fan who just had a creative way of doing it. So that's one of the better spoiled votes we saw. The big sports story, really, I think, there was a couple of sports stories from the election, but this is certainly the one that caught most of our eyes. We all knew Paddy Holohan, the MMA fighter, was running for election. Here are the scenes at the RDS yesterday.
Giving a total of 440. As the votes of Patrick Pearse Holohan exceed the quota, I deem him to be elected. Surplus of 75 votes, as it is the only surplus available and fulfills the following condition: it exceeds the difference between the two lowest candidates and cannot elect a continuing candidate. Thank you very much.
That's Ian Begley of INM, who posted that video on Twitter yesterday, capturing those scenes. We can get the actual result as well that was posted by South Dublin County Council. Holohan getting 1,048 votes after the seventh count for Tallaght South. Doing pretty well there. Like you never quite know how someone like Paddy Holohan's going to get on, so it'll be interesting to see how he progressed in his political career. A couple of other stories as well. There was Kenneth Egan got re-elected, and down in Kerry, Niall Botty O'Callaghan got elected.
Tell us about Botty. Was he one of your teachers?
He coaches in basketball in school.
Basketball, yeah.
Yeah, heavily involved with Dr. Crokes, always involved as on the sideline with Kerry as well. Don't think he's involved this year under the new management, but certainly under Amos Fitzmaurice he was. He was in absentia for the campaign, so he launched a digital-only campaign and managed to get himself re-elected. So a couple of big sporting figures around the country. I'm sure there's many more when it comes to administrators and stuff.
He get elected on holidays?
Basically, I think.
That's not bad, is it? I mean, also, that's terrible.
I saw him do his version of a swing video last week as well, instructing politicians how to not fall off a swing, which has become a meme at this stage.
Yeah.
Really. One of the images from the weekend really was seeing Rory O'Carroll back in a Dublin jersey. Just the sight of him out there, the sight of him playing football again. He got a huge roar when he came on by all the Dublin fans. But for me, this was the image of the evening. Rory O'Carroll with Mick McDonagh after the game. Mick McDonagh always manages to find himself in the big GA positions, and it's never a bad idea to go through a Mick McDonagh gallery.
Okay, cool.
Let's just do it. Here he is watching Colin O'Rourke, media advisor to Colin O'Rourke, Conor McKeown. They're actually grilling Colin O'Rourke a few years ago. Here he is on the sideline pointing the Offaly hurlers to goal. He's celebrating a win here in 2017. I love that celebration, but this one is probably my favourite celebration. This is after Offaly beat Laois in the league in April 2017. And then a few years ago, he did an interview with the GA about how he was saving up for a trip to New York, and lo and behold, there he is this year at Gaelic Park as Mayo hammered New York. So Mick McDonagh, he's had a good season this year. He's getting himself front and centre quite a bit. The other thing that kind of caught my eye from the GA this weekend was Shane Stapleton, who posted about his cousin and Father Vinnie Stapleton. He substituted himself midway through the second half of a league game against Sarsfields to go say mass. Blessed us with a couple of lovely points. No, this is not a joke. Let's see how they got on in the end. Unfortunately, it was a defeat for Borrisoleigh. They lost 213 to 16 points. Not sure how much of a contribution Mass had in said defeat, but we might get to the bottom of that some other time. In the rugby then, Tyke Furlong's done this a bit, where he introduces us all to his teammates on Instagram. After the game against Glasgow Warriors on Saturday, it was time for us to meet the backs. So we'll go through these. We'll start with Owen Redden at scrum half. Not Owen Redden, Jesus, Luke McGrath at scrum half. I feel like I'm living in 2009. AKA the ferret, DS Arnott, same haircut since age 10. His dad puts Tabasco sauce on the skirting boards to stop the dogs chewing them, unorthodox. At out half then we've got Johnny Sexton, AKA Birdneck. Enough neck for 10 heads. Cantankerous at the best of times. Spends his spare time on FaceTime to his kids. You'll see him leveraging his kids on Instagram. Family man. His company accounts make interesting reading. At 11 we have James Lowe, AKA Caveman / Loudy. He'd peel an orange in his pocket. Owns a toy shop back in New Zealand. My neighbour in the dressing room, unfortunately, has adjusted to Dublin life by taking residence in Avoca. Then we go through the midfield, I think, yeah. Robbie Henshaw, aka Squeeze Box Bob, Athlone native, has an album on Spotify. Traditional music specialist. Is his album on Spotify? We must actually check that out.
I'd say it is, yeah.
At outside centre, we've got Gary Ringrose with a knife emoji, aka Ringer's Runny Honey. Beekeeper like his father before him. The next bot on the pitch doesn't capitalise off the pitch as much. Niall Woods, get your finger out. Weirdly obsessed with Jonathan Davis.
Niall Woods is his agent.
And on the other wing we've got Jordan Larmour, aka Phone Box / Bungalow, son of Ian and Anne. Nickname stems from his quick feet. Second one self-explanatory. 25 points, leaving cert 2015. Runs like he is mad at the grass. Hyperactive kind of fella, never changed lad. And then finally, 15, Rob Kearney, yellow or red. What could that possibly mean?
I don't know.
Is that
What colours?
Yeah.
Fairmont or Toulon?
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
They're-
Is there
they're
any
good.
Japanese clubs that wear yellow or red?
I mean-
Like whenever Tyke Furlong does those pieces, they must be well thought out beforehand. He must have like a notepad written of all his players, and then he's like, if we win a trophy, I'll put these out. Otherwise, it might be seen as inappropriate. The only other thing I wanted to get into today was kind of the end of the football season. Of course, there's plenty scope for madness to happen tonight or this afternoon in the Championship, but the conclusion of the Serie A was absolutely crazy because you had Atalanta, you had Inter Milan, and you had AC Milan all going for the Champions League places. This is a mad graphic that was made on that I found on Reddit this morning that shows the change in position all throughout the 90 minutes of the final season yesterday. So you had AC Milan, who'd gone 1-0 up early. They'd gone into third position. At one point in the 19th minute, Atalanta had gone down to fifth position out of the Champions League. But fortunately, from their perspective, they managed to turn it around and get a 3-1 win. And they managed to qualify for the Champions League for the first time in their 111-year history, the 14th highest wage bill in Serie A. Great story for them. Finished off with Inter Milan leapfrogging their city rivals to grab the other qualifying place for the Champions League. AC Milan missed out on the Champions League. A crazy final day. All the scores were up and down, and some brilliant stuff there. A couple of sendings off as well.
Here's Robbie Henshaw's thing on Spotify. There's a screenshot of it. There it is. The Secret Sessions, the Henshaw family and friends with special guest Sharon Shannon. We made a documentary about this actually. It's up on our YouTube channel. If you search for Robbie Henshaw and Sharon Shannon, it should come up. The Manila Reel, Monty's Reel, the Green Graw Reel, that's Sharon Shannon. That's obviously all her music, and then they're playing it.
Not so secret anymore, I dare say.
No, absolutely. Here you go. This game was woeful. It was worse than watching paint dry. It was Gerlach Nan in his column in the Star today. But yet he feels that it could be a very big point for Davy's Wexford. And it will be, more than likely, despite the fact that Davy is obviously the focus of all of the attention, having been sent to the stand by referee Johnny Murphy yesterday. There were some other people giving out about the quality of fare on offer at the weekend. Apparently not everybody was enamoured by the Fermanagh Donegal game.
Yeah, that was, as expected, fairly turgid, I think is the correct term for that. Donegal managing to feel their way around the setup that Fermanagh employed, and thankfully football purists will say managed to win comfortably enough in the end. Like, I wonder, are we now at the point where if you're a team of any bit of quality, aka top 8, 9, 10 team, you have a way of beating this blanket defence fairly easily, as long as you keep your head and you have decent point scorers, because Donegal do have an exceptional forward line, but it did take them a little while to actually figure Fermanagh out. I've got an issue, like my issue with Fermanagh is starting to grow a little bit the more I see them, and the more I see the footballers that they have at their disposal. Like, some of the points Fermanagh kicked yesterday were absolutely wonderful. They were incredible scores on a couple of occasions, and you wonder if the system is actually getting the most out of them. Like, Oisin McConville was saying at halftime on the BBC yesterday that he didn't feel Rory Gallagher was getting the most out of Donegal when he was manager there, but he does feel that he's getting the most out of them as Fermanagh manager. I'm not so sure if that's the case. Like I can see why they would set up in that manner, and I can see why they need to play like that against better teams. But I wonder, I don't wonder, I really, really do think it's just too ultra defensive, that there is far more of a balance to be found in that Fermanagh team, because a lot of those footballers are getting inhibited.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because Fermanagh obviously fairly small county in terms of GAA, fairly small in terms of the tradition that they have. They haven't really had a long history of playing free-flowing football that everybody thinks, oh yeah, this is exactly how we should be playing. But I don't know. It's like if they were to evolve over the next couple of seasons into a team that has an attacking philosophy as well as the defensive philosophy, then that's fine.
This is the perfect time to evolve, though, isn't it? Over the last 12 months, when they get to an Ulster final and then they get thumped in that Ulster final, is that not the time for them to, and they get knocked out by Kildare in the back door, is that not a time for them to sit and say, why aren't we actually winning this game against Kildare? Why aren't we giving a better account of ourselves in the Ulster final? Is that not the time for them to tweak? Now, they'll say they did tweak and they got even better at the back. They conceded less than everybody else in all 4 divisions in the Football League this year. And they will say that, and that's fair enough. And I buy your point, but ultimately, like, you look at the basics of the system.
But maybe it's not a 1 year thing. Maybe this is you build over 3, 4, 5 years, and like everybody who comes into the squad begins to understand exactly what they're supposed to be doing. That, like, they don't have the playing personnel to suddenly switch. I know people are going to talk about a change of mindset, and so everybody begins to look forward to, but like, you can't just do that. You know, you don't have, you've got all those training sessions, but mostly they're strength and conditioning and a bit of ball work. And maybe that's what's wrong. Maybe they need to do more ball work. I don't know. I feel like we want everybody in a sport that is amateur to flick a switch and suddenly be able to instigate massive change in playing philosophy, when actually what you need to do is space this out over a period of time.
But my point is that their ball work looks like it's pretty good. Looks like they're pretty handy. Like their number 5 yesterday, Ultan Kelm, looks like one of the best young wing backs that's arrived on the scene this year. It's my first time seeing him in full, because you don't get to see Fermanagh in the league. He looks absolutely exceptional. He is a potential star for them. Like as I said, like Ryan Jones midfield, fantastic player, kicked a beautiful score in the first half yesterday. Their point kicking was brilliant. I think their ball playing is good. Like on the basics of their system, if you can't transition quickly, then you're screwed really. And they weren't even transitioning quickly, at least that Donegal team, even when they were at their turgid worst, before they managed to make the breakthrough to become All-Ireland champions, were at least getting up the pitch quickly. And Fermanagh weren't really doing that. It's almost as if, like, once they make the turnover, they're happy enough to just contain possession for a little while.
Yeah, Rory Gallagher was the coach of that team. Like, I don't know, that Donegal team's cornerbacks would frequently be found inside the opposition's 21.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yellow or red was referring to whether or not Carney should have got a yellow or red card during the game.
Yes, good point. Good point.
Podge Muller says at least Mayo got to go to New York. Not the first or the last to make that one, Podge. I'm sure they had a good time, you know. When the story of the great Mayo team comes to be written, the trip to New York will have a whole chapter to itself. The last one.
Yeah, the true market is Mayo team is like the Mayo players went to a banquet 2 nights before the New York game and still managed to
win the game.
Hammer New York.
Somebody who calls himself Jeff Hendrick, a weird internet persona to cultivate, I have to say. But anyway, another bottle job from Mayo. I mean, give the Rossies some credit. They were up for it, says James on Facebook. How much credit and how much bottle job?
Bit of both, for sure. Like
30, 50, 50.
It must be really frustrating that if your free taking was just a little bit better, you would have won that game. Like, that's
same for the Wexford hurlers.
Yeah.
All right, we sent Mossy Quinn to Borden and Mona O'Connor Park in Tullamore to watch Kildare and Longford draw. Somebody had to go. It was presumably an epic encounter. We'll never really get to see it. Here are Mossy's post-match thoughts and his take on the Dubs demolition job.
All through that last 10 minutes when the game was really in the melting pot, they were the ones driving forward, and I'd say they will feel slightly that they left it behind. But in saying that, Kildare started extra time particularly well, looked like they were in control, and again another goal from Longford got them back in. Michael Quinn, who was one of the best players on show here today, bundled over the line, and possibly a fair result at the end of the day. They probably both felt it at different stages they were in command.
This is 2 games now where Kildare were expected to win, both the Wicklow game and this afternoon as well. They obviously just about got over the line the last day. They've got themselves a replay this time around. Still plenty of improvement for Cian O'Neill's side in the championship, you would think.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think it's the consistency. Like there was stages there, they looked really, really good. You know, they started the game particularly well. They had 4 points to no score up after 10 minutes. Then they went out of it for a while, and again, parts of the second half they look good, and they kind of come in and out of games, and they drop. Their intensity levels drop a lot during the second half there at times, and they didn't get a huge amount of impact off the bench. They would have had obviously they ran the bench in the end of normal time, and then at the start of the second game, at the start of extra time, they were able to make changes again, and they were very reliant on kind of the same guys over and over, whereas I think Longford did have guys who came in, made a difference. You know, some of the goals, some of the points that were scored came from their substitutes, and I think that's something Cian O'Neill would look for going forward, that he needs more from. You know, there was too many guys that didn't get a performance there today.
And Kildare got turned over quite a few times off their own kick out as well, something they really need to work on.
They did, yeah, and Mark Donlan had a poor kick out there to really get Longford back into it in the second half, and it was one of those ones you could see what he was trying to do and he just missed it. You know, it wasn't executed correctly and it cost him a goal, and it was one of those ones where Longford were trying to put, both teams in fairness today, put a lot of pressure on the both keepers' kick outs. Kildare did the same, into the wind in the first half. Paddy Collum in the Longford goal, he's a long kick at the ball, but at times they were putting 4 men into the full forward line, taking away that short kick and forced them long, and Kevin Feely made a couple of excellent catches, and so both teams had success on opposition kickouts today.
And Longford as well, they'll be happy with the goal threat they carried throughout the game as well, because there were multiple other chances where they could have had goals. There
was always that sense of danger, and again, a lot of their hard running, you know, they've got good carriers of the ball and they've got good footballers inside as well, and they kind of scored every different type of goal today. Now one of them did come from a mistake, but in fairness, what I like about them is that intent there. You know, sometimes you see with teams they settle for taking points, or they get to a certain point and they look up, whereas this Longford team, there's that sense of adventure, that if they are within a certain distance, or they certainly have a look and they look to see if the option of goal is there, and they were rewarded with it 3 times today.
Probably one of the better games we've seen this weekend as well overall. I mean, this was a pretty absorbing contest.
It was, yeah, and testament to both teams. They both came to play football, you know, and there was attacking and it was open and it was hard hitting, but it was good championship football, and it was a big contrast to the first game. You know, I suppose we arrived here after seeing Westmeath and Laois a couple of times in the league this year, and we were expecting a good game, and it was pretty dour, and it was, you know, Laois won't care, they got over the line, but in terms of the standard and the quality of football we were here to, you know, from an entertainment point of view, it wasn't great, whereas the second game it was end to end, and there was some great scores and some great skills on show, and I suppose everyone will be back here next weekend looking for the same.
There was a piece in the programme this afternoon about just Dublin's dominance since 2011. It's pretty clear this province is fairly closely matched outside the current All-Ireland champions.
I think so, yeah, and I think that comment has been made before. You'd have a brilliant championship if Dublin weren't involved in it, you know, because there's a lot of teams all on a similar level, you know, and certainly on today's show, and the 4 teams here would all be very close, and I know Meath had a good win last night, but you know, that's the way it's shaping up, and it's hard to see anyone on any kind of current form getting close to Dublin and Leinster at the moment.
And in fairness to Jim Gavin and his side, they flexed the muscles a little bit last night against Louth as well.
They did, yeah, and you know, like sometimes teams may find it hard to get up for games like this, but Dublin don't, you know, and I think that's a testament to the group, and it's the way they've been over the last couple of years, and I think it's one of the foundations of their success. And again, they're probably not so much competing against Louth last night as they were with themselves in terms of fighting for places, fighting for the competition for places, and you know, the respect they do show teams. They genuinely do prepare the same for games in the first round of the Leinster as they do for the All-Ireland series or the Super 8s, and I think you see that in the performance levels they get.
We see Rory O'Carroll coming back in there, adding to the panels. Lots of speculation about Dermot Connolly potentially going back in as well. We'll see what happens in that regard. But if these guys are around for summer, that has to push the panel just a little extra couple of % as well.
It does, yeah, and I think Jim has always said that they do open it, that they do operate a policy where, you know, it's never a closed panel. Guys can come in at different stages, and you know, I think that's the way they operate, and they do keep each other on their toes, and you can see it with the competition for places. You know, like Cormac Costello goes and kicks, was it 112 last night, kicks nearly all his frees. Dean Rock wasn't togged out, you know, and you've Paddy Andrews to come back into that squad, and there's other guys there competing, and it's you know, it's a lot of it is about the competition for places and the culture within the group that they have, and again, the likes of Rory coming back in just adds to that.
Yeah. Oh, turn that back on. There you go. Yeah, turn that back on. The performance against Louth is important, but not really. It's who's not playing, it's who gets the start, it's how well you do in that start. That's what matters.
Yeah, it is. I've got a sneaking suspicion we're going to, you know, the way we kind of always have this deep idea that Dublin might spank somebody in an All-Ireland final, like absolutely pulverise them. I've got a feeling this year it's going to happen. I've got a feeling it's going to happen this year. And the one moment that showed it to me was They've already scored, 3 goals or 4 goals, can't quite remember. And Philly McMahon gets the ball in his usual sort of around the 21-yard line, having burst up the pitch. Gets the ball, turns, and shoots for goal. He doesn't put the ball over the bar. He whacks it into the bottom corner. Another green flag, and I'm like, oh my God. If this team could get more ruthless, I didn't think it was possible.
It's May.
And it's May.
It's too early.
And it's May.
No. That's not how it works. You think that, right? And you get you get trapped in the tyranny of the now. And what happens is, they come back to the pack. It just happens. It's too early. It's too early for the Tipperary hurlers, and it's too early for the Dublin footballers. That's my only. They're not going to be as dominant as they are for the rest of the season.
Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe we can go back to that.
Yeah, we will. We're gonna play 2 clips from yesterday here. First is Maurice Trasny-Kelly's full chat with Davy Fitzgerald, which ultimately he cut short. Then we have Daithí Regan reacting to the Wexford manager's dismissal from the sideline and his post-match behaviour. And then we're going to hear from Liam Griffin.
Davy Fitzgerald, things didn't go your way, but you pulled out a draw despite the fact that you were very unhappy, and that's me putting it mildly.
Gee, I don't know, I'd agree with you there now, tell you the truth. I think that was an awesome Wexford display. No one gave us a chance coming up to Galway today, bar ourselves. We should have won that game today, 100%, and we're disappointed, but my God, I'm fair proud of the lads there today.
It might be a silly question, but you say you should have won, you didn't, why not?
I think you could see the game yourself now, being totally honest about it. We missed a clear-cut goal at the end with a bad wide at the end. I think anyone that had a pair of eyes out there today would see we were the better team.
There's a lot of wides as well in the first half.
Yeah, we had 10 wides in the first half to their 8. But that's the type of game to us. When you play a game like that and it's very intense, a lot of people probably wouldn't understand it. When it's really tight and hard, they don't get spaced, hardly breathe, you know, and the conditions are really tough today.
When you were sent off the sideline, what was said to you?
Listen, that's the second time in a row that we have had a fella taken out off the ball. It happened in the last one here as well. Yet there seems to be one rule for one set of management and another for another. So I'm actually ceding at the officials again. Didn't abuse him. I was making my point quite clearly that our lad was taken out off the ball. They ended up getting a score, and that's not right.
To be devil's advocate, they would say that either it happened off the ball, they didn't see it, or they did the best decision that they saw at the time.
I think that's not the truth. Hi, hold on. Being honest now, you're giving me too many hard questions and I'm not interested in answering that stupid one.
Well, it's not a stupid question, I'm just being devil's advocate. Bye, Davy, Sloan.
He was sent off, rightfully in my view. He encroached onto the pitch and he just a barrage of abuse at the fourth official.
Well, because he did feel that they missed something really, really big. I mean, his player was on the ground, looked like to be in a lot of pain. He looked to be taken out off the ball. So you can understand why Davy was as upset as he was and as angry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you're as passionate as he is, you know, he sees what he sees. And he'll raise issues and he'll shout every time he sees something he thinks should go their way. Even when there's nothing in things, he roars and he shouts. But I often think at the time the theatrics are a little bit too much on the sideline. Now, it didn't affect the way his team played. And I remember speaking to Brian Gavin about this before when he refereed the Clare replayed All-Ireland when the players were back chatting him in that game, and on a couple of occasions he actually awarded the frees up to Cork 10 or 14 yards. And he said on one or two Clare players, stop carrying on like your manager, I'm going to keep penalising you. The difficulty is if the indiscipline then seeps into the players. So you've got to be mindful as a manager. Yes, we can all get emotional looking at the teams we like and the teams that we manage, etc. But I felt afterwards he was very derogatory to you, I have to say. I heard the interview and I didn't think he carried himself with great dignity. I think he asked a really smart, intelligent question that was an obvious question. So from that perspective, I think he should have answered it. But I mean, you've got to check the emotions as well, because when it happens with regularity, you know, at what stage do Wexford County Board say, tone it down here? You're doing a good job with our team, but just tone it down. We don't need it. And there was incursions from his Mayor Fairness as well. I watched that along the line quite a bit today, and they were all very agitated. You know, you don't have to copy your manager, lads. Be your own men.
Yeah, so that's Daithí Regan in conversation with Maurice Trasny-Kelly after the draw in Galway yesterday, which keeps both sides very much in the hunt for progression in this year's out of Leinster and into the All-Ireland series. I'm delighted to say Liam Griffin is with us this morning. Liam, how are you doing? Good morning to you.
Morning, Ger. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Well, the championship is alive anyway, and
Sure is. Yeah.
It's feverish. What did you make of Davy pre-match and post-match?
I thought the whole game was tense, and I thought there was a lot of tension around, and I think the weather conditions had a lot to do with it, because fellas started to miss early on, and so it signs Wexford only got 1 point in the first half from play. I think they had only got a point, and Galway only got 2 in the second half against the wind. So the wind in Salt Hill seems to cause havoc in games, and I think that makes the players even more agitated, and there seemed to be a bit of agitation for sure, and no one really settled. Having said that, look at Davy's box office, no matter what we say. We talk about Davy here. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Davy is what he is, and he's not going to change, and he brings so much passion, and he does a lot of that. And whether we like it or not, that's the way he is. And he had a very justifiable case yesterday, because last week in Dublin, there was an incident off the ball in the Dublin match, and the linesman was looking the wrong way. Now, you expect the officials to do their job on the sideline. They should spot something which is actually opposite him. So he has a point. How he reacts, yes, okay, he reacts that way, and that's the way he is.
Yeah, so Dai Regan's making the point that at some point he feels like the county board are going to step in and say tone it down, but that's very unlikely, really, given that you.
No, I would say the county board would be saying that to Davy. I think they'd be trying to say to him, look at Davy, calm down. But would you like to take it on, Ger? Would I like to take it on? No, not going to do it. It's not going to happen. And okay, he can go so far, but at the end of the day, the issue for me is the match. And I thought that Wexford, we went into both games against Dublin and against Galway, which, that was a serious away draw for us. And I would have been very happy to come out of it with 2 points. Now, we've come out of it with 2 points. I think we could have won the Dublin match. Dublin could argue the opposite as well. And yesterday, I would say we should have won yesterday's match. And I thought we played some of the best hurling we've ever played under Davy for that purple patch in the middle when we made a comeback. I thought that's the best hurling and the best demonstration of the game that Davy wants to play. And the short passing game, and it worked really well. They got some magnificent points. The equalising points from Liam McGovern was absolutely fantastic. And Jack O'Connor made a massive difference when he came in, and the ball he played back to Carl Dunbar. Unfortunately, Carl just didn't catch it right. And that's it. And I thought there were some great passages of play in the game itself, despite all of the negative stuff around it as well.
Yeah, and they've got Carlow up next. And with all due respect to Carlow, they're not going to go to Wexford Park and win that game. So you would expect...
Well, in fairness now, Ger, we have, over the years, we've always had issues with these... absolute certain matches, and the same with Galway yesterday. You would have thought Galway were racing certain days. Carlow have a game to win somewhere, and they're going to really try, and Colin Bonner's done a great job. So that game cannot be taken for granted. Wexford need 4 points, that's it. We need to beat Carlow, and we need to beat Kilkenny and Wexford Park to make it through to the next level. But you know what? I think that if we had beaten Dublin, we'd have got an extra 20% out of the team going forward, because they need to make this bit of a breakthrough, and if they do, I think that team is going to soar a bit higher.
That's the difference, isn't it? Though? Sorry, let's. I'm not writing Carlow off or anything, but I'm assuming that.
No, I know.
The improvement that we saw from that purple patch yesterday from Wexford is exactly the foundational stone, followed by a victory against Carlow, which would set them up for a home match with everything on the line against Kilkenny in the final round of the round robin. So. I don't know. That's exactly the type of atmosphere that Davy wants to build around this team.
Well, in fairness. And having been in management, that's the game I'd like to have. I'd like to have it all on the line. I'd like to wind up having it all on the line. And that's the end of it, because then there is no ambiguity. You just get the job done or you don't get it done. And, all the sideshows won't matter anymore. And I think it's going to be on the line. I think Wexford will beat Carlow, and I think it's going to be on the line in Wexford Park. We've got to beat Kilkenny. And I think it could then wind up a Wexford-Kilkenny Leinster final. But it's all to play for. And look isn't it great? I mean, the game, everyone say, wasn't this and it wasn't that. It was a great game in many respects, and yet it had bad patches. But I think sometimes we're looking for too many scores out of 10 for every single game we see. That's just an opinion.
Wexford obviously scored only 2 points in the opening half an hour of yesterday's game. The free taking was an issue. Was there anything else that you saw that was a genesis for that?
Yeah, no, I thought the free taking was poor, and I just think that's going to haunt us if we don't get that right. Now, Lee Chin did a great job against Dublin, but we need absolute consistency. We are, with all due respects to the whole world, we are not good enough unless we're able to convert to convertibles. We need to convert to convertibles, and we need to limit the opportunities we give other people on fouling and so forth. That's an absolute must. So, from our perspective, that's got to be got right for the rest of the championship. We need consistency on the free taking side, and that hasn't happened. Now, Lee did a great job against Dublin, but fair play to him. The win conditions were bad, but we did have a few very bad misses as well. But then Galway only got 2 points from playing the second half. So let's be fair, that wind in Salt Hill seems to do a hell of a job on a game, and that's not the first time in football as well.
It was interesting actually that Wexford won the toss and elected to play against the wind. It's almost as if Davy has more of a belief in his system in the second half of the game, or I don't know how to even read that, Liam. It's almost as if
I'd have done the same.
Right.
The bottom line is you don't need Galway with the wind behind them and a screaming crowd trying to come back from 7 or 8 points down. I think you're on a hiding to nothing at that stage. So I think that was the right option. He made the right call. I think it was the right thing to do. We lost a minor Leinster semi-final to Laois a few years ago with a very good team, Conor MacDonald and Kevin Foley and all those guys on it. We had a super team. We played and we were supposed to play against the wind. We didn't, and they got the win in the second half, and we got the win too early, and they came back and caught us with a late goal. And these things come back to haunt you. So on average, I think it's a good idea to play against the wind, especially if you're going to playing away from home, if you can contain them in the first half. And actually, Wexford did that, and Galway didn't get a goal in the first half. I was just praying they wouldn't get a goal, because if they got a goal, it might have put too big a gap between us. But it was very doable at half time, so that was the right call on the day.
Liam, what did you make of Galway? Because this is a team who last year were considered All-Ireland favourites the whole way up to at least the semi-final stage and looked almost unbeatable until eventually they didn't quite perform at their own level in the semi-final and final. And they've come way back, it seems, this year. So where are they and what do you make of the rest of their season?
Well, they're in a difficult position now because they're going to go. Dublin have to beat Galway, and they've got to beat Dublin, and they've got to beat Kilkenny to stay in this championship. And I on the form of yesterday, I don't see it. But there's more to Galway than what we saw yesterday, and I think our game might bring them on a bit. But look, they're in a very rocky position, and They blow hot and cold anyway. Unfortunately, even in the best of times, over many years, they blow hot and cold, and it's seeped into this team as well. So they need to get their act together for the next 2 games, or they will be gone.
Yeah, so there is a sense that obviously without Joe Canning in any team, the team is going to be transformed. But like the impact that Canning will have on the opposition. Just the best defender will go on Canning. Suddenly the second best defender is marking somebody else in that forward line, and that forward line suddenly begins to break even in ways that you don't really notice until Canning is gone.
Yeah. No, look, Canning is a huge player. I've been watching him since he's 15 years of age. He drew an All-Ireland final against us in under-16 hurling with 2 sideline cuts from the far side of midfield, and I said, who the hell is that guy? And then I was told he was Ollie's brother, and I said, my God, he's going to be some player, and he has been all of that. But you know what? You have to get over these things. We've got Jack Guiney in America. Jack Guiney is potentially a Joe Canning, and he never has seen he's never seen that out, and it's a pity. We've got Andrew Shore. Andrew Shore is in Spain. We could argue all day. Look, you've got to play with what you have, and Galway have to play. If Joe was injured right through the whole year, he could get knocked down in the first minute of the next game, and that's it. So you've got to actually have the steel to play without your best players. That's the way it is in sport, no matter what happens.
There is a sense at the moment, possibly to do with the quality of the fare that we've seen, essentially really from the Tipperary side so far, that there's a significant gap between Leinster and Munster at the minute, that Munster is very far ahead of where Leinster are. Is that real, or is part of that to do with the fact that we've had these kind of not great games in the Leinster Championship so far?
Yeah, I say that's a fair assessment. I think it looks behind it. We've always the Leinster Championship has never generated that same feel as the Munster Championship over all of the years. Yeah, you had the rivalries with Wexford and Kilkenny over the years, and Offaly and Kilkenny, but it never generated that same rivalry. So historically, Munster hurling is always seen as that. But you know what? When it gets out to All-Ireland finals, you just tally it up and see what happens then. You'll see the likes of Kilkenny come along and storming these teams that have come out through this fantastic thing in Munster. And Leinster teams, Offaly, Wexford ourselves, we won against the odds too. We were supposed to be way behind Munster at that time. That's been going on for as long as I'm watching hurling. But in fairness, it looks like that at the moment, and it appears like that. It's a different type of game, and I think that intensity in Munster is just fantastic to watch. But it's not necessarily a guarantee that Munster are going straight through to win an All-Ireland.
You said you think it's probably going to be a Wexford, Kilkenny, Leinster final. The third team to go through will be Galway, do you think?
Well, I don't know. It's up for grabs still. But Dublin have got something to say about that, and I think that Dublin could get to 4 points out of that. So it's all to play for. It's going to come down to a Dublin-Galway match, in fact, between the two of them. That's assuming Wexford wins against Kilkenny. So Wexford could lose to Kilkenny. But I think it's going to come down. I think Dublin have got to view, or Galway have got to view it as their big game. Their knockout game is going to be the Dublin game. Because I don't think they'll beat Kilkenny in Nolan Park. Right.
Liam, good stuff. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks, lads. Thank you very much.
Liam Griffin gave us some thoughts after what happened at the weekend.
It's probably going to stay like that, isn't it? Kilkenny, Galway, Dublin. Or Kilkenny, Galway, Wexford, I should say.
The final round of fixtures is really interesting. It is Wexford versus Galway at Wexford Park and Dublin versus Galway at Parnell Park.
Mm-hmm. So you'd imagine Wexford and Dublin will both get their wins against Carlow. That'll leave the same gap between them. Now that you've got this sort of mesh of points between them as well, there's huge incentive for Kilkenny out there, who I've got a feeling might actually get a bit of revenge against Wexford after their recent success. And then you've got Galway as well looking to beat Dublin. So I think it's going to stay like that positionally, and if it stays like that in the manner of points between them as well, you wouldn't be overly surprised either, to a certain point as well. So I don't know, like, finishing third is a great place to finish in either province, and it looks like Wexford are going to finish there. And there's certainly something there, right? Like the way they managed to turn that game right after Davy got sent off yesterday as well kind of suggests that they're a team that are built on emotion, and that if they get into a knockout game, when they get into huge stakes, that they're actually going to be okay.
And so if they were to win in Wexford Park against Kilkenny and then play them in Croker in a Leinster title and win silverware, what's the percentage increase in terms of belief and talent and performance that you get out of that side then?
Yeah,
is it 30%? Is it as big as that? Do they suddenly surge?
It could be. It's gonna be a huge jump, isn't it? And like yesterday is all part of that. Back from the brink, really. Like, to be fair, I thought, like, people can give out about the quality of fare yesterday, but you got to admit the last 5 to 10 minutes were proper edge of the seats. I was properly on the edge of my seat, glued to the screen to see what would happen, and it was absolutely fantastic. And the players come out of that and they survived. They haven't got beaten. That is a huge, huge thing. I think it's as good as a win. It was a bad result for Dublin hurlers yesterday, and I don't think they'll get through. I think it was a good result for Wexford, and I think that'll become clear in hindsight. And you do have to look at Galway's performance yesterday, because they're quite lucky that Wexford were so inaccurate in the first half, because it covered up the narrative of Galway. Like when Davy was asked by Maurice Trassiter earlier on about all the wides, he was like, yeah, we had 10 wides to Galway's 8, which was kind of suggesting that we were bad, and Galway weren't as bad as us, but they were also bad.
Yeah.
And I think that could become a little bit of a threat over the next couple of weeks.
So just to clarify, Maura Trassett tweeted after her interview with Davy, managers are under a lot of pressure this time of year. They're human too. Davy was understandably feeling all kinds of emotions at full time, yet kindly agreed to an interview with me immediately post-match. He walked away when he had enough. He's allowed to do that. I've great time and respect for Davy, and I've seen firsthand how committed he is. I've yet to see a manager work as hard as he does. We both have our own jobs to do. We've worked together before. We've had rows before. I hope we continue to do so. Maura Trassett made a brilliant documentary about Davy Fitz's final season in charge of Clare, which you should dig out. So they obviously know each other very well at this stage, and so that was Maura Trass's response to that. She also spoke with Micheál Donoghue at full time. Micheál Donoghue, also not a particularly happy post-match manager. Have a look.
For 2 weeks. The referee was a bit severe in terms of how he adjudicated on some challenges and that.
The question. Yeah, but look, in fairness to Johnny, is that from him or is that from higher? Look, I think the debate is going to rage on. Do you know what I mean? I thought, there was some of them were harsh. Look, when you're asking me,
yeah, harsh enough.
Yeah.
Well, it depends what your vision of harsh is. I mean, you could argue if you're protecting player safety. I'm just being devil's advocate here.
That's fine.
You don't agree?
Oh, sure, look, if that's your opinion, that's
It's
fine.
not my opinion. I'm just being. No, I didn't. I said you could be devil's advocate. No managers they're all I'm angry at me today, I'm sorry. But look the officiating, I saw both sets of managers. You're not going to obviously speak for Wexford, but you also looked pretty unhappy as well for a lot of it, especially in the second half.
I did, yeah, but it's highly competitive here, we're under no illusion of the fact that it is so, we're all competitive by nature, and we're going to fight for absolutely every single thing we get,
It goes to show as well the value of Joe Canning, doesn't it? When he's not there, that he's just such a leader that you do miss his presence when he's not there.
He does, yeah, but we knew he wasn't going to be here. Do you know what I mean? I said I have huge trust in the group. I've said it 100 times, and I keep saying it. Anything that this team has done has been on the collective, not to any individual. Any team would miss a player of his calibre 100%, but we know we don't have him.
That's the sound of a manager who's not happy. That's the sound of a manager who knows that there's a lot of work to do, isn't it? In terms of, I'm sure it wasn't any reaction to any questions there or anything. I'm sure it was just, it's tough for somebody to step out after being fairly annoyed with their team's performance, and he can rightfully be annoyed perhaps with his team's performance, because outside of Conor Whelan, I'm sure there's plenty of those players who look to step up over the next couple of weeks. But I wonder, is he waking up this morning and thinking, what do we have to do? If Joe Canning's not going to be back until after the Leinster Championship, how do we get this thing back on track? Because I think it's warning signs for Galway after yesterday, because it was an atrocious display in certain areas by Wexford in the first half, particularly when it came to accuracy, and Galway let them back into the game.
Yeah, I do. At home. But so how many championship matches have they played in Salt Hill over the years? Almost none. Like, it's not really, it hasn't become a home ground for them properly. And I don't know, I wasn't there, but the wind in Salt Hill, everybody knows that, who's ever been to Salt Hill. Like, let's wait and see how they get on in Croker or Thurles in All-Ireland quarterfinals stage. I don't know. I'm not that worried about Galway just yet.
I am.
Especially if Canning's coming back. Now, if Canning's not back, different ball game. But as soon as Canning comes back, I think they're a different team.
They certainly are. But I think, like your question to Liam Griffin there is spot on. I think we're looking at an All-Munster All-Ireland final.
Well, we won't go that far just yet. Okay, let's wait and see. I need to see how the draw works out.
Well, all it takes is one provincial winner getting beaten, and is a third place from Munster going to take the Leinster runner-up, and then vice versa.
Are they? I don't know.
So that, therefore, you essentially have the Munster runner-up going up against the Leinster winner.
So Limerick versus.
Well, I'm not sure.
Kenny, Wexford. Good game.
Looks like it could be a Cork Tip Munster final.
We'll see. I think Limerick are going to be the second best team after Tip. Anyway, a lot of aggro going around at the weekend. Carlos Stephen Poacher spoke with Stephen Doyle about the suspensions handed out to the county. They lost in the Meath game. They got absolutely hammered, but it was the Laois game in the build-up to the Laois game that Stephen Poacher was talking about here. Have a look.
Did the suspensions have an impact on the results?
Of course it did. Of course it did. And like, to be honest with you, I never spoke about the suspensions. I was contacted by media outlets the whole way through the suspension. I never spoke one word about it. But now that it's done and dusted, and now that we've drove up the dead end as such, it was ludicrous. Like the Wexford chairman the week before our suspension described Davy Fitz's suspension as ludicrous. Davy Fitz goes from 12 weeks to 4 weeks on the basis that there was like a mobile phone footage floating about that heard the referee saying something. Like, this is the tripe that was delivered to me in an appeal hearing. Like, and I had to sit and listen to this, and I actually at one stage cackled with laughter over the way it was going. And like, look, James is out there tonight doing the line. Good luck to him. Nice fella from Cork, man. But look, when you look at the referee's report and you look at the video, it's quite laughable, and my name was dragged through the media along with Turlock and Brennan. We were absolutely destroyed in the media. There was 4 or 5 national newspapers ran articles on it. Listen, I would love people to have seen the video and to seen the report and compare and make their own decision, but how any intelligent professional person could look at that video and look at the report and gauge that we deserve 20 weeks, 12 weeks and 12 weeks. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And listen, I probably don't blame the appeals and the DRA and stuff like that. Blame the rules. The rules are ridiculous. And the problem is that referees now are writing rules. They're writing the rule in their report so that there's no way out.
What do you think is ridiculous about the rule?
Well, the length of the suspension, And listen, by all means, let's be honest, like we're talking about approaching referees at the end of the game. So do we get to a stage now in Gaelic football where we're actually not allowed to go and shake the referee's hand? I have a fantastic relationship with referees. I sat in a referee's room after we were beaten by Longford and had a cup of tea with Al Cullen and chatted to him about the game. He refereed that game. I just chatted openly to him on a humane level, because respect works both ways, and I've always said respect works both ways. And sometimes you get an official who maybe puts up this, like, we don't live in a dictatorship, we live in a democracy, and for me, you look at your Cormac Riley's, your David Goff's, your I don't want to start naming people, but these are all guys that you can talk to and have you can have a wee bit of conversation with, and they speak to you on a human level, they speak to the players and in a professional level and a realistic level. I just think we need to be careful as well the way we're going now, and it's becoming the stage where, obviously the referee is hugely important. Nobody's pushed more young referees at underage level than me. I brought through 12 referees in my old school through the Young Whistlers programme. There's no one pushes and encourages them more than me, and I'll go out of my way to help referees the best I can, and I just feel it very sickening, that we're that the group are missing out, and that we're.
And why do you think you were treated unfairly, if that's how you feel it was?
I don't think it's just the consistency of it, you know. And listen, you know, I don't really want to go into massive detail about it, like, but I just think it's the consistency of the whole thing. Like, Kieran McGeeney got suspended last year, wasn't announced of it in the media, not one single word about it. Davy Fitz got suspended, there wasn't a press release. We got suspended, and the first we heard of it was through Twitter and social media, and there was press releases. The video of the incident was leaked on the lead up to our game against Laois, to try and create a stir and cause a bit of a shamuzzle. Like, that wasn't coincidental, like, and we know where it came from. You know, we know what camp it came from. We played Laois that week, and we know what camp it came from, you know. And it was ironic and quite funny that in the lead up to that game, you know, we were, you know, you talk about innocent until proven guilty. We were guilty straight away, you know. We were guilty straight away, and it was trial by media, and the stuff that was wrote in the media was absolutely disgraceful, like, you know, and the way we were judged. And listen, I respect everybody. I have a lot of good friends in the media. I have a lot of, you know, they're only doing their job, you know. Good luck to them. But it makes me chuckle too, because people talk about Carlow not being relevant and Carlow being Division 4, but I tell you what, it was relevant enough for it to make national news for about 3 or 4 weeks in a row, you know. So we must be doing something to annoy people.
Stephen Poacher there. Yeah, it was a weekend where referees took it both barrels from various camps.
I love the I'm good friends with referees line, and I've been key to the development of referees. Whatever you think about Carlo and Stephen Poacher, there's no question that he is box office when you put a microphone in front of him. I haven't seen the incident. There seem to be...
They should, if the video got leaked, they should... He said, I wish everybody could see it to make their own minds up. Instead, put it out there. Publish it.
Yeah, definitely. He obviously was all done for an altercation with a referee or for some sort of physical contact with the referee. So it is ironic that it is Carlo that suffered that after the Diarmuid Connolly situation 2 years ago.
Everybody's complaining about the referees, right? Davy is complaining about, Micheál Donoghue's complaining about, Poacher's complaining about it. We had a great piece on the website on offtheball.com written by Jake O'Donnell about violence against referees in grassroots football. And so this is exclusively a story about soccer, but there is no respect for referees in Irish sports culture, and it goes across almost all codes. And you can't have the most senior and most high-profile managers in any sport giving out about referees and think that referees are going to be safe, because they're not, because monkey see, monkey do, people copy.
That's the point, Ger. It's when you go to rural GA games, and to be fair, the GA is probably the worst for it, and I mean that as a GA fan. I grew up in a culture in Tipperary, playing GA, going to matches, and those kind of actions on the sideline, it gives. Like, I agree with Davies. I love his passion, and I love the fact that he cares so much, and he defends his players, and he always gives them credit after the game and says how proud he is, and I genuinely think he is.
Yeah.
It's just you've got to try and keep that bit of composure there on the sideline. And I said it on breakfast radio this morning about, is it time for a case of these inter-county games, these big games, that managers understand? They have the technology to chat to people, their water carriers and guys bringing on messages, and I possibly think it is, because
I think they might scale back the operation soon. I think that's inevitable.
Yeah,
especially
and
after
Davey spoke last year about, and I like him, and as I said, I love that passion. And he spoke last year about, you know, spending the first half in the stand and second half down by the pitch. And why does he come down the second half? It's because to have a presence. And you know, when I played rugby, it was always about, you know, body language, presence. It does have a factor. It does make a point. It's like someone doing a motivational speech. They say actions and presence and body language is 9/10 of the presentation, if you like. So it's just, but I can understand their frustration, because there's a standard, not alone in these matches, but in club matches, of missing out and stuff, umpires not picking, and the umpires are the ones that can probably watch that stuff. You know, the referees, it's very hard for a referee to track it, and sometimes
it gets worse in club games, because you've got less talented linesmen and less qualified, if that's the right word, umpires.
But there's a lot of this blocking going on and obstruction when people, because there's a lot of movement in the game now, and that's what's actually happening a lot. People who are tracking people across, they're getting blocked out.
But it has an impact. My point here is that you can't take their actions where everybody's constantly complaining about the refereeing and saying, am I not allowed to even go and shake hands? Well, you're totally allowed to go and shake hands, but the problem is that at local sport, in football and in GAA, there are too many instances in the last 18 months of referees being physically attacked and verbally abused.
The abuse to referees getting soccer. My young fella plays under 11 soccer, and it's just, wow, it's mind-blowing stuff, and it's a cultural thing. It needs to change, because we can all shout at the referee when he makes a mistake and he does something wrong. If you think he's deliberately kind of making bad decisions and there's a trend throughout the game, it does infuriate you.
Yeah.
And as a dad watching, sometimes I have to kind of head away and stay away from the sideline. So I can understand that you know, your son is playing and you feel he's been hard done by and he's made all this effort and sacrifice. You're the one he's going to sit in the car with you going away and he's going to be heartbroken because of some terrible decisions or hometown decision or whatever. It's difficult, but the referees need to be protected, you know, and there needs to be a consistency around that in all sport in Ireland, I think, because, you know, if you don't have the referee, and I tormented referees throughout my rugby career. If you don't have the referee, you don't have the game.
Yeah, no, for sure. Alan, welcome. How are you?
Good, Ger.
We didn't actually get to say hello to you there, but yeah, welcome. We should talk about the end of the season. Before we talk about the victory for Leinster, I think really what's happened here, and the big story is that Sean O'Brien's Leinster and Ireland career has come to a pretty terrible end for him and for Ireland, because there was a sense that if we were going to have a breakthrough and reach a World Cup semi-final, that everybody needed to be at their very best, that we needed Sean O'Brien to be at the level that he was at in the Lions Tour, and that the whole Lions Tour actually was this brilliant example of him coming back from injury and reaching world level in a very short space of time, and we kind of hoped that he was somehow going to be able to replicate that, but the hip injury is obviously serious enough to warrant surgery and he's out of the World Cup.
Yeah, it's so disappointing, and it's a very sad end for someone who's had just such a phenomenal career. And you talk about the passion and the drive and the determination that you want in a sports person. He had it. He was this modern day back row. When I played with Munster and Ireland, these kind of freakish back rows who had this power. Wally was one, David Wallace. He had this just incredible power. Along comes Sean O'Brien, along comes Stephen Ferris, along comes Dennis Leamy. This different type of player, this different type of back row. And there's so many of them now. Levy, Van der Fleer, Stander, this explosiveness. Sean had that explosiveness. He had an ability to beat people with just a little bit of evasion and then just acceleration through that space. And then you scrag him with a tackle, and it's just, if you're not on the money with Sean O'Brien, he's going to blow through you. And I played for probably 2 seasons against him. Played a couple of times in those Leinster games. I think the one in 2010 in the old Lansdowne, it was changed over to the Aviva, and Leinster beat us. And I remember just thinking, wow, the acceleration, this guy, but the hands as well. He gave a lovely little deft pass for Dricko to score in the corner. But he was tough as well and abrasive. And every time I met him in the last couple of seasons, and I think I seem to have said either best of luck or good luck in the recovery. It was a lot of that. There wasn't much well done, brilliant game, brilliant stuff, because it was usually he was out injured and he was just tormented. And it's just,
you mentioned Ferris.
Sad.
Ferris, Leamy and him, they came along around the same time.
Yeah.
Their careers all cut short by injury.
Yeah, and I think the victims of their own power. I always thought, Fez was just an incredibly powerful and explosive player. And I just wondered, did that explosiveness and that power come against him? Dennis Leamy had to get a hip replacement. Dennis probably wasn't as quick as the other two, but he was unbelievably powerful. Dennis is a hip replacement. Stephen Ferris is a wonky ankle, sore hips, sore knees, and now Sean. He's just a list of shoulder, neck, elbow, hip.
It's some 6, 7, 8.
Hamstring. Yeah, phenomenal.
Is the hip thing all down to the style of play, or is it down to?
I don't know. Look, I'm not I think it could be the power they have, the power they're generating with the acceleration and the way they can get off the mark. Sometimes I looked at some of my injuries, well, the shoulder and my knee. I had shoulder at the World Cup in 2003. That's just one of those things. You fall awkwardly. I fell like that, shoulder pops out. My knee in 2005 was, Mark Taylor was tackling me against Sale. He grabbed me by the collar, threw all his weight across my legs, and my knee just snaps inwards. I did my elbow in 2010 in Galway, trying to poach a ball, someone falls in my hand. They're kind of unfortunate ones, and a lot of the boys have had them. Just look at Cian Healy, the amount of kind of the injury profile he had for probably 2 or 3 years, and look at him now. He's just at this lovely, incredible run, which is phenomenal, and his performance at the weekend and his consistency all season is amazing. Sean never got that run when he came back, which was just so unfortunate. Whether he recovered fully and something else went wrong between hamstrings and knees, and it's just a shame, really. But going back to your question, maybe it is something to do with the power, the explosive power that they have, that maybe they've had that. I thought that, when Sean O'Brien and Cian Healy were kind of getting injured a lot a couple of years ago, I thought maybe it's because they're so powerful. Like Cian Healy has incredible power, and he popped his hamstring dead or squatting or something in the gym.
Came off the bone, I think. Was it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was very difficult. So it's some of the injuries are just.
Can I just
twisting, turning nature of it, and some of them I think maybe is down to that power that they would have had.
This isn't wise after the event, because I literally made this point about 4 or 5 years ago that we should have given Sean O'Brien a year off in the World Cup cycle. That somebody like Sean O'Brien, there's a few key players. I probably would have given Murray a year off. I probably would have given Sexton a year off in the middle of the World Cup cycle and said, off you go, lie on a beach, go and work on the farm, do whatever it is you want to do, but stay away from rugby for a year. We'll pay you, and we'll want you fully fit for the World Cup. And everybody was like, and then eventually it kind of became a thing, well, maybe we should do this, because obviously that's what the All Blacks did with Carter and McCaw. 6 months.
We've tried it with tours, you know what I mean, to leave some guys out of some of the tours.
That's not enough. I think you need to go away, not be in training, don't be lifting weights.
The thing about that, Gerard, they probably don't play the same number of games as maybe some of the English guys or the French guys. And you go to a player and say, here, take a year out, and he goes,
here's the money.
Yeah. And that's all
great.
The
money.
Yeah, but come here. And then suddenly a Dan Levy and a Josh van der Fleer appear, and you're now third choice, so.
Yeah, but you're that level that you're not.
I agree.
You're not doing it for everybody, right? You're doing it for people. When he's 33, we should be looking at giving James Ryan a year off at that stage, because he'll have played 15 successive years of world-class rugby.
It'll never happen here. I think it'll happen that they play less games and they play less of the Pro 14 if they're on the Irish team. You know what I mean? If someone is like that, but it's just very unfortunate, because
it would have been worth the experiment in Sean O'Brien's case. It definitely would have been worth the experiment. And if he comes back and gets injured and he's out,
but he did have long periods, Ger, of rehab.
Yeah,
and I
they're not the same, I think, though.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I found the rehab for me was an opportunity to work on other things. So if you have a little shoulder niggle, I'm out with my knee and I've shoulder niggles, neck, you've a chance to strengthen neck, back, core, glutes, hammers. So you do have a chance to put other stuff together.
Imagine doing that fit, like you're fully fit, and off you go. And okay, so it's not that we'll never see you, we'll give you a fitness program and all that kind of stuff to stay tuned, but like rest the body, rest the mind, and come back and give us.
Yeah, maybe it's something that could have worked with Sean, and maybe he needed a complete break away from even doing the kind of fitness and the rehab, that his body just gets a complete break.
Yeah. And isn't the rehab boring? Doesn't everybody hate it? Isn't it a bit grim? You're away from rugby activities. You're a bit of a pariah within the team in a weird way.
It's a ladder kind of scenario. If you feel you're kind of getting back and you're active, the early parts of the rehab when you're post-injury is frustrating, because you don't see a lot of progress, and it's when you start moving on the bike or running or making some gains or getting some scores in the stats, you're in a good place because you're progressing. But it's just unfortunate. But I think the legacy, I hope in a sense that he will get to play with London Irish. It'd be brilliant that he could get back and recover. Is it worth it? The money is probably very good. He'd probably get a good insurance payout. I just think it's sad that he hasn't got a chance to leave on a high. You think of some of the players who got to leave on a high. 56 caps. Sean O'Brien probably should be a 100 cap man.
Definitely, yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but the legacy and the impact he's made on Irish rugby and Leinster has been phenomenal.
Yeah, and at a cultural level as well. Here's Stuart Lancaster speaking to us after the game about Sean O'Brien's departure. He paid tribute, obviously, to the Tullaman, but also warned that the Leinster show will go on.
Well, it has to be up there, wouldn't it? I mean, in terms of what he's delivered in the game. He reminds me a little bit of. I feel I never got the chance to really coach him. He was at his best, obviously, with the Lions, and obviously my time with Leinster has been injured a lot of the time. And Jamie Heaslip was a similar type of player where you just love to have coached him, more really. But throughout the time I've spent with him over the last 3 years, so impressed with his personality, his integrity, his leadership. his desire to want to improve, and he raises the standards of everyone around him. And people talk about what's his point of difference. His point of difference is how he makes other people feel in the squad, and it's testament to his influence that he was given the trophy to raise, because I don't think anyone doubted his influence over Leinster in the last 10 or 15 years.
How much are you going to miss him and Jack McGrath the next season?
Yeah, I'll miss them. I think we'll all miss them. We'll all miss them. The two Lions, two top-end Ireland players. Jack's going to take the opportunity with Ulster, and we will support him with that. Obviously until we play against him, and Shawnee to London Irish. But so we'll miss them. But you have got the likes of Ed Byrne, who came on today, coming through. Back row wise, Max Deegan came on. You've got Dan Levy, who'll come back from injury during the course of the season. Caelan Doris was outstanding for us. Scott Penny, Ireland 20s open side. I think he's a little Sean O'Brien, to be honest. He's going to be a great player. So the show rolls on with Leinster, and that's a great credit to the academy and to the quality of the players that come through the system here.
Yeah, so they're pretty confident that they've got stuff within Leinster to replace Sean O'Brien. From an Ireland perspective, what are we going to do?
Well, Josh van der Fleer do you wrap him in cotton wool now and keep him fit?
Here was our pre-World Cup. This was our. You had Van der Fleer and Sean O'Brien, pre-Six Nations, side by side. Obviously, Shawnee's gone from that. Dan Levy's gone from that.
Who's back up to Van der Fleer now? Who'd be your first choice back up at this point? Because Van der Fleer clearly has the jersey now.
Jordy Murphy is probably next in line, but he's played a lot of number 8 this year, and he's never let Ireland down. He's played 7, and he was probably starter a couple of years ago.
Rhys Ruddock
can play. I think you're getting into territory there where you're putting guys where they're not natural, and he can be very effective. He played against South Africa a couple of years ago and was brilliant there.
Australia,
but you lose a game then. You lose a game then, and you go, well, our back were beaten, and we've no 7. You can go straight to that scenario and say, well, we've no natural 7. I think someone like Tommy O'Donnell, who's had a very bad injury profile as well. He's a brilliant footballer. He's quick. He's powerful, and he could challenge there.
Is he fit?
Come back in the mix. Well, he's back from his latest injury as well. Tommy's similar to Sean, is probably not as bad, but he's had an horrendous run probably in the last 2 years. When he's fit, healthy, and well, he's back fit. He was fit. He's fit for the last couple of weeks. Just didn't have enough of game time played to feature against Leinster in the semi-final. He could come back into the reckoning if he gets a good pre-season. If he's named in the squad, I think he's naming the squad today, 45, for a training camp for the World Cup kind of run. So I think it's that kind of pecking order, and Tommy's got an opportunity, and I think he's lost out on opportunities, and the likes of Levy and Van der Fleer came on board a few years ago when Tommy got injured. He's someone who could come back in the mix. Sean Reedy could play there, and then you can you make a 7 out of Rhys Ruddock, Max Deegan, fellas like that, CJ Stander. It didn't work against Leinster, but I think there's certain types of games. Of course, you could play CJ there. You could play Peter O'Mahony there. But you want to try and have natural 7s if you can.
Yeah.
You want to have 2 6s. Maybe one of them maybe can play in the second, or 2 8s and 2 7s. You
see the way Van der Fleer came back from injury and played as well as he's ever played against Munster. So he hadn't played since the Six Nations, right? Was it Six Nations or was it
it was the French game. He pulled his hamstring. It was,
so we know he can do that. Do you literally wrap him up and say, okay, you're
look, they don't have any games. I think you'll
don't play a minute in any warm-ups. Don't play.
World Cup. Well, it's just dangerous if you do that, Jerry. You know what I mean?
We look at it.
I know.
He can do it.
I know. It's dangerous. They'll all get some game time in those World Cup warm-ups. But I think a lot of Van der Fleer now is back into number 1. I think I did a squad last September, and I was thinking,
is he going to make it?
Will he make the World Cup squad? Because a fit and healthy Sean O'Brien and Levy was in pole position.
Yeah.
And like we spoke about the depth, didn't we, a while back, and how many of them were there. But it's just been kind of badly hit now. But I think, look, Van der Fleer, it's brilliant that he's back. You hope he can stay fit. You want to try and have natural 7s behind if you can. O'Donnell can play 6 and 8. Jordy Murphy can play 6 and 8 as well. So you've a bit of room for manoeuvre there and movement. But Jordy Murphy's probably next in line as the 7.
Just on the idea of, say, CJ Stander perhaps going out there, I know you'd say it's not ideal to put somebody in that position when they don't naturally fit there, but has the evidence of the last couple of weeks suggested that the Jack Conan and CJ Stander gap is closing with every passing week, and therefore it might actually be a nice compromise to get Conan in at 8 and then Stander in at 7?
It's with Munster not hitting the kind of highs and Leinster being involved in 2 finals and stuff, it's you've more exposure. Jack Conan has played really well this season. I'm a fan of his. I think he's a brilliant player, and yeah, he's putting pressure on there, and I think that's a good thing. Stander has delivered continuously for Ireland, I think, up to probably the Six Nations where they all kind of struggled since he made his debut a couple of years ago. He's a tireless worker. But he probably needs, for all of them, it's no harm that there's kind of season over now and that there's no tour and that they can really kind of have a good pre-season, a good build-up. But that gap is closing, yeah. And I think Jack Conan deserves to be talked about more now. I think he's got real consistency into his game since he's come back into the Leinster picture this year, and the Irish picture as well. So he's someone who can certainly challenge her.
How important are those scenes on Saturday evening from an Irish perspective, that the season has ended on a high note? Because it was like Saracens' game clearly wound up these Leinster players. The Six Nations was obviously a disaster. We needed this from a countrywide perspective.
Yeah, I think so. From a Munster point of view, it's your biggest rivals winning more trophies, and you've got to tip your hat to Leinster. It's 10 trophies in 12 years is phenomenal, and that's what we're talking about, Munster closing that gap and being in that position. But what they've done is psychologically they've probably given that whole group now, for Joe Schmidt and Andy Farrell moving into this pre-season phase, they've given them that kind of belief that, you know, they finish on a high. There's the vast majority of that squad will be in the Joe Schmidt's plans for the summer and for the World Cup. So psychologically, to win a trophy, given where Ireland were last year, Leinster were, it's very important that psychologically they've won a trophy, and they kind of won ugly as well, particularly in the second half at times, which shows a bit of steel and resilience. Is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I said it last week here that Leinster or Glasgow averaging 35, 40 points in their last 8 games, just blowing teams away. This is going to be different. Leinster have to make it different. They have to make it ugly, abrasive, aggressive, and intensity to it. That, to be fair, Glasgow could have been 14-5 up and probably should have been. Leinster, Ringrose gets lucky with the try, great block down from Luke McGrath. The whole momentum switched then. And they just ground it out in the second half, and they did a bit of a Munster on it in 2008. I don't know if you remember, on 71 minutes we started picking and going against Toulouse, and I was like, Jesus, what are we doing? And Tomas O'Leary had only played a couple of games. Tomas just kept saying, go on, keep going, lads, and we're like, it's too early to close out this game. And Leinster were doing it a bit on Saturday at the 71st minute, and it frustrates the life out of the opposition, and it did out at Glasgow, and they just managed the tempo of that last 10 minutes very well. I know they conceded a try late on with 4 or 5 minutes to go, but I thought it was really important that they psychologically to have that feel-good factor.
It's mad how the Saracens game was brought up in the post-match comments again, and Sexton brought it up kind of independent of many questions, I think, as well in the pre-match. Like, I know I alluded to it in the previous question, but this defeat to Saracens has clearly had a huge impact on the psyche in a hugely positive way, and I wouldn't be surprised to hear this mentioned again and again. I just hope, again, from a national perspective, that the Wales game and the England game are at the top of their minds going into the World Cup. Today you're able to channel that into a positive as well.
Yeah, and they've got to learn from that, I think. How do you manage the power of the Vunipolos and Cruz and Itoje and these guys, and the disappointment in Cardiff, maybe just being smothered out of it by Wales, and a very good Welsh side who defended incredibly well and just turned the ball over throughout the Six Nations, didn't play the most attractive brand of rugby, and Ireland struggled with that. So that's why this one on Saturday was exactly the way Leinster kind of managed that game and didn't panic and didn't kind of force, like when Glasgow were 7-0 up, it was Leinster then turned the pressure straight on them, got the try. Then when they missed that opportunity of when Hastings should have given the pass to Johnson, it would have been another try, would have been 4. after that, they just managed the game very well. They didn't force it. They didn't play in their own half too much. And that's what they were guilty of a little bit against Saracens, overplaying a little bit. But you would hope that there's loads of templates to look back and say, well, look, do this and this differently. When we play the bigger sides and move them around a bit and just manage the territory better. And I think that's, hopefully they will learn from that. But
if I gave you £1 million charity bet right now and said you've got to pick quarter-final, semi-final, where are Ireland going to finish?
I'm going to say semi-final.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to say.
Hope alive.
We just hope that. I prefer if it's South Africa. I think if we're playing New Zealand in a quarter final, it's going to be different. I think we've a closer. It's a real 50-50 shot with South Africa. We tend to, psychologically, even though we've beaten New Zealand in recent years, which is brilliant, I just think we'd have a better opportunity and prefer to face South Africa. But
all right,
we've got to beat Scotland in the first game. We've got to beat Scotland, Ger.
All right, good stuff. Thanks, Alan. Here are James Horan's post-match comments. David Brady is on hold after the Roscommon game. He's up next.
Perhaps had you one eye on the final, do you think, or what was it? Can you put your finger on it yet? It was quite soon.
No, that's a bit insulting, really, that question. But anyway, no, not at all. Roscommon were very good today. Deserved the win. We just were a little bit off. They got 2 early goals and it took us a while to recover, but we did, and we got back in front. We just couldn't close out the job. So we've got a lot of things we have to work on.
James, does anything change now for Mayo going into the qualifiers?
Yeah, we'll have a lot of players that are coming back in the next few days. We'll have to look at things. Absolutely. A lot of the fundamentals that we're working on won't change, but definitely we might need to tweak around the edges and see can I get us something.
Yeah, short and sweet. David Brady, what the hell happened? Oh.
That sums up Mayo's weekend.
Flat line. Boo.
Is that the sound of Mayo's championship hopes? Is that the sound of the life support machine
being plugged out?
It's Mayo's hopes of ending the curse, or curse themselves.
DB is back. DB, I just asked you what the hell happened there, and we got the dial tone, so I don't know if you want to answer us now.
The tail between my legs hit the off button.
15 points, I think you called it. 15 points was your prediction.
I think I called it that Mayo needed to win by 12 to 15.
Right.
If they were going to show any sort of credentials or continuation of form or being one of the best teams in the country. And yeah, look, it's a different story today on the Monday than it was on the Friday. And no matter what, you have to hand it to Roscommon. They weren't lucky. They weren't, they played. When you look at it, and it was a fantastic game of football. Some of the scores, points taken from play, the goals. Just it was a fantastic game of football that Mayo entered into, and the minute that ball was thrown up, and I think a lot of people sensed it, you know what, Roscommon were up for it. They brought a physicality to the game that matched their intensity, and they didn't drop that level from the very first to the last minute.
When it comes to Mayo and how they approach the game, is there questions about that, David? Because obviously there were clear errors that were made, there was frees that were missed, but was there also an approach issue in terms of whether the players themselves had the incorrect mentality, or perhaps even from the sideline? What was your take on that?
Probably the same ones that Mayo have had consistently over the last number of years. That no matter who they play against, whether it's the Derrys, the Kildares, even in league football to a degree, the Monaghan's, the Cavans, the Roscommons, everyone has a chance, and everyone has been given a chance, and I think that's probably a failure from a Mayo perspective on the way they approach games. That they open up an opportunity for every team because of the way they play, the style they play. And I think we've seen it on Saturday evening, the way that they allowed the game to open them up. And I think that's a major learning from a Mayo perspective. And the game did open them up, especially around their half-back line. I'm surprised from both sides, on the pitch and off the pitch, that they allowed that naivety to creep into their game, and it was a perfect tactical game plan from a Roscommon point of view. And you know what? Yeah, Brendan Harrison, Chris Barrett, Keith Higgins didn't have one of their finest games, but it would have been torture to be playing in the full back line with the amount of space that was afforded to the inside Roscommon forward line.
Yeah, we might get into that in a moment, but I just want to come back to that attitude point that you brought up, or it's not really an attitude point, the idea that everybody has a chance against Mayo. Like, at what point did this change for you, David? Because this used to be an issue. This definitely wasn't an issue in the first Horn era, particularly near the end of his tenure. They were hockeying teams in Connacht. They were winning Connacht at a canter, and now they're struggling to win Connacht at all. So what's happened there? Why are they letting teams back in? What's changed in their mentality?
Struggling, yeah. Like, the last time we had a bad run from a Mayo perspective and not winning a Connacht Provincial was in 1956 to 63. That was the worst barren spell from a Connacht perspective. But you know what? Is it Mayo, or is it teams are copping on to Mayo? And I do, no matter who, if you look at it, you go, how do I beat Mayo? Well, first of all, you don't give them the space that has been afforded them in the past by teams. You frustrate them. I think that's a major bone of contention. If you can frustrate this team, Mayo team, and get in their face, that it doesn't suit them. They don't like it, and from an attacking point of view, again, you can give them all the ball they want. Like, I think it was something like 7 out of 18 kick-outs in the first half. Mayo won. But you're going to let them win it, but what do they do with it? Again, you frustrate them, you put them under pressure in the kick, and time again, the wrong options were taken from an attacking point of view. The pressure, the shot wasn't on, percentages. And you always work on percentages, and that's what you're coached, and that's what you're told, but Mayo took the wrong percentages, the wrong options. The only one time that they ever even nearly threatened the Roscommon goal was a lovely ball in from Evan Regan into Jeremy O'Connor, who should have got a result out of whether it was over the bar or point. But again, when you're not in that situation once in 70 minutes, it doesn't stand to you, and Mayo didn't threaten goal in any way, shape or form.
Is this a terminal blow, or because we've seen this film before? There's a belief that Mayo can somehow wangle away to the Super 8s, and then sure, it doesn't really matter how you got there. The Super 8s is a completely new competition.
Yeah, it's we've seen this film before, but there's I don't know when this box set is going to end, George. That's the truth, because it's I have to say, I'm still dazzled by it, because you're going, you know what, you have. I going into the game, I said, you know what? They have competition for places. They that's no one is allowed to relax now because of the young guys that had coming up. Will the back door give them and James Horan an opportunity for more game time, more experience? But when you look at it, and it is, Roscommon finished with 14 men because of all their subs used. You can't have a panel and bring on the likes of Kieran Tracy after 73 minutes when your forwards aren't functioning. And it's not. I don't care who your name is, but if you're playing okay, that's not good enough. And you can't bring on someone that showed a lot of balls and capability in going for goal in the final of a National League, and then to be only brought on at 73 minutes when you have a total of 19 wides up to that stage. You have to have faith in the guys, and there was a time on the 50th minute on the button that Mayo came back level, and that was the turning point. That should have been the turning point, our indicator to say, now let's bring on fresh thoughts, fresh legs. Because when you're in a situation like that and you have wide after wide and you're not functioning, it's kind of an epidemic at that stage.
Yeah.
But you're saying to yourself, you do need a functioning free taker, and time again it has cost Mayo. But our two functioning free takers were Evan Regan, who I thought he was playing well, but he was taken off, and then you had Jason Doherty taken off. So the last kick of the game, it boils down to your first free kick of the game for Kevin McLaughlin. You're ISing in You know, when you have Rob taking the longer range frees from 35 or 40 yards out, that doesn't afford your free taker to get his eye in and to be confident on the ball.
When you know it's the last kick of the game, do you just bring Rob up for that and say, right, look?
When you know it's the last kick of the game, you know what? It shows. It's called the epidemic in confidence, and there was no one going to turn around to bring Rob up after missing the three odd frees that he missed. But you're going, why change course all of a sudden? Now I would say Kevin McLaughlin has saved Mayo in the last kick of many game from dead balls and from play, but it's just, you know what? It wasn't the easiest free kick, but I'm going, if you have faith, keep the faith.
What was with Diarmuid O'Connor relinquishing the duties there? He had the ball in his hand and then seemed to give it to Kevin McLaughlin. Was that him just saying that he didn't want to take the free, or that he felt Kevin McLaughlin would take it? Like, either way, it kind of seems like a lack of confidence there, which I don't know where that's come from, David. Like, it must have just come from within the game, because like Diarmuid O'Connor kicked 2 unbelievable scores in Croke Park in the league final. He was absolutely brimming with confidence. Like, I'm just confused as to where this self-doubt has started to eke into Mayo.
Yeah, and it's you know what, it eked in from the first minute in that game, and that's again, you say to yourself, who is your dedicated free kicker? Who's your dedicated free taker from the left or right? Now, the conditions weren't ideal, but if the wind, if you look at it the way the wind was, it was going from right to left, so it's not ideally suited to a left-footed free kicker, because you have to cut to the right a little bit. And you know what? Going back, and I'll be honest, when I seen Kevin McLaughlin taking the ball, I went, you know what? Yeah, good head. You know, good guy, and has done it before in the past when it really counted in the last minute of a game. But it's when you're going. Kevin was the fourth free taker of the night. That doesn't continuity. That just doesn't. That's not good enough. And you have to. Okay, Killian is. They have relied so much on Killian over the years, but you have to sort it out. And them decisions, you know what, the responsibility is handed to the players. It's not something that a manager will run on and saying, you know what, you're taking this free kick. It's a learning curve for the guys to say who takes it. And you know what, the ones that should have been taken, probably the Evan Regan and Darren Cohen were off the pitch. Again, there's not many games where you score 5 points from play. Now, whatever GPS stats or whatever, you know, notionally too, a manager knows the players better than anyone if he sees that his lungs are out and is gone. But I'll tell you one thing with Darren Cohen: if he's standing on his 2 legs and he has the ball in his hand, he is as accurate as you get. Whether his lungs are gone or what, or his legs are gone, but Mayo should have brought on a lot more, 3 or 4, at least 3 subs around the 55th minute. We brought Andy Moore, Conor Diskin. But that was it up until the game was nearly gone from us.
If you had the choice to crystallise one Mayo season now, David, for going forward and trying to make it as far as possible in the All-Ireland, would you pick where they are currently? Would you pick where they are under Peake Rochford? Would you pick where they are under Holmes and Kennelly?
Good question. And you know what? It's the most competitive provincial championship is Connacht. I think it's a fantastic, you know, it's fantastically competitive, but you have to win. You have to win Connacht to know again how to gauge your training sessions, how to gauge your fitness. There's a lot of peaks and troughs. You have Super Ace to look at and with one eye, but at the end of the day, one eye in the past, one eye in the future. It's the present that suffers, and I don't think nobody wants to be in this position as regards Mayo players. Mayo supporters, the piggy banks were robbed for New York, but by this over the next few weeks, it's going to be hard times because again it's on the road. But look, it's not. We've seen it before, and last year I have to say I was very disappointed to say this Mayo team have never given in, and they haven't. But we bowed out very limply against Kildare, and I don't think that's going to happen again. Let whoever they get in the back door. It's 3 more games, Let whoever be to the benefit of Mayo, and to say, you know what, let's not get opened up at the back. Let's not have our whole half back line being sucked up the pitch, and you're allowed pop ball 20, 30 yards down into a man-on-man full forward line. You know what, if Mayo are going to do anything, there'll be one team that'll tank, and that's Roscommon, if they're going to progress in any way, shape or form this year, because there's a lot of lessons to be learned out of it.
DB, good stuff this morning. Thanks a million for joining us.
Cheers, guys.
We're sorry for your troubles, I think is the appropriate. Which box set does it feel like you're watching?
It definitely feels a bit like 24. There's definitely kind of a race against time with Mayo at the moment. 3 weeks is a decent amount of time, and I've got full faith that they will get to the Super 8s. By full faith, I mean close to full faith. The round 1 qualifier draws out, and Mayo fans will be very happy to know that one of Monaghan or Fermanagh is going to get taken out. Monaghan against Fermanagh is by far the tie of the round. They struggled against Tip at times last year. Tip have to go to down as well.
Yeah,
so
we'll go through those with Phil in just a minute, because he's standing outside, and it was his fault actually that Mayo lost at the weekend. So we'll get to that in 1 second. To get him in, here's more from Celtic Park, where Jonathan Sexton also paid tribute to Sean O'Brien.
I suppose we knew early in the week that Shawnee was struggling a little bit, and we wanted to make sure that he got his last contribution. Wasn't the Sarries game, because his last memory now will be lifting the trophy. There's not too many people that have lifted a trophy by themselves in Leinster. I think maybe Leo and East are the only two. The rest of the time we always lifted in twos, but it's fitting for him, and we're going to miss him greatly. For me, like he's up there with some of the best players I've ever played with. As a forward, I'd say he's the best. No offence, Leo, but he had some strings to his bow that just some other forwards in the world didn't have in his prime. And as a leader and a player, we're going to miss him. But we'll, obviously drive things from within and make sure that those younger guys that are coming through will live up to his standards.
Yeah, high praise from Johnny Sexton for Sean O'Brien. A reminder that BMW and Triathlon Ireland are challenging the OTB team to hashtag Try for Pieta this summer and raise funds for Pieta House. For more information, check out triathlonireland.com. You'll see the link to more information there, also on the hashtag Try for Pieta. BMW is a proud partner of Triathlon Ireland, and it's is title sponsor of the BMW Triathlon National Series, 17 of the most exciting triathlon races in Ireland, and turns out it's not as difficult as you might think, Owen, eh? Have you recovered from last week?
I'm still shook, to be quite honest with you.
Shook?
Yeah. It's have you ever exercised beyond your point of limit?
Anytime I exercise, yes.
To the point where you actually feel hungover. That's kind of how I feel, except it's like a 6-day hangover at this stage.
Phil, how are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm going back training tomorrow. I'll do my usual session in wasn't the most disciplined weekend. I was obviously at a wedding in Westport, and then ducked out of that for a while to meet Kevin Kilban, and we did a post-mortem of the game in Castlebar. So tomorrow should be interesting when they decide to run the legs off me. But we've still got plenty of time.
What was the match watching experience like?
Well, I only really got to see the second half. I got my wife's phone had Sky Go on it, so I said, can I just borrow your phone for the next 35 minutes? And it was. I was keeping an eye on it. I was thinking, it's not going to happen again. I know I talked about it last week, saying the last time I was in Mayo, when they played a championship game, they lost to Kildare. I thought, no, they're not going to lose to Roscommon. And it happened again. Is this the new curse?
Maybe if they kill you, the curse will be fine.
I'm due to be back down there next weekend, so I probably have to watch my back.
All right, okay, Jesus.
But I don't know. I wouldn't be too down about it if I was from Mayo. I think this Mayo team, they have to. The first thing that they do, they have to get to Croke Park, because that's what the best Mayo are when they're in Croke Park. I think all this. Also, if they're ever going to win in All Ireland, you have to write them off during the season.
So then, what you're saying, just to tease us out, is that they actually want to be in Dublin's group in the Super 8s and have them in Croker. So Dublin's home game would be in Croker, the neutral game would be in Croker. They'd have 2 games in Croke Park, and then they'd have 1 game in Westport. Would that be right?
In Castlebar, yeah. So for Mayo to get Dublin and Castlebar, Mayo need to get
Croker.
Oh, in Croke Park they would need to get. Who are we thinking here? The permutations have really kind of. I think
a hot ball along the way.
I think it's the Munster runner.
Mayo and Croker ball.
I think it's the Munster runner up they need to draw. Certainly, if they want to get Dublin in their own backyard, it's the Ulster runner up they need to draw. But for the game in Croke Park, the Dublin home game, I'm actually not quite sure.
Yeah, I think as well, if you're going to lose, you do it early in the championship. And it is mad to think that the last time they won the Connacht Championship, James Horan was in charge.
Yeah.
They absolutely... it was Kennelly and Holmes.
Yeah.
Sorry, they hammered Sligo in Dr. Hyde Park. Aidan O'Shea was playing full forward that day. And, that... What happened then was, after that game, where everyone thought Mayo are looking like dynamite, they're going to go on and win in All-Ireland. So...
And they nearly did.
They nearly did. But I wouldn't be too down on it. I think there is a bit of an issue playing in Castlebar, that maybe there's a bit of extra pressure, and they, if things start going awry, then maybe mistakes creep in. So I think they need to get back to Croke Park. That's when they play their best football.
I mean, Roscommon hadn't won there in about a millennium. So
86, wasn't it?
Like, it's not great.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I think we overstated the length of the drought earlier on. It was 33 years instead of 43 or 53.
Pre-war.
Sorry, yes, you're right. It was actually...
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Long enough for it to be a thing.
A long time. It's not the sort of record they wanted to tumble this year.
We'll get to the qualifier draw in a minute, but Shane Ross has been out this morning talking.
Yeah, he was on News Talk Breakfast talking about the FAI, and obviously there was some strong comments from him in the paper with Noel Mooney's appointment, and we've got a clip of it here, pretty much saying like that the FAI are not doing what they were asked to do, and I suppose the knock-on effect is, as things stand, they're not going to resume the funding. They still have half the funding. That's due to be released in August.
Yeah.
That's like 1.35 million. And we can have a listen to what he said.
Well, the FAI is in a state of turmoil. And it has a great opportunity now to reform itself, to take itself into a new era. And we were very surprised, as my department tonight, the Department of Sport, when we heard, against our wishes and against the wishes of Sport Ireland, the FAI decided to appoint someone who had links with it in the past. And we thought that it was such a chance here to appoint someone new, to appoint a troubleshooter, to appoint someone who was determined to be part of a new board. That's not happening. What they've done is they've appointed Noel Mooney, who's a man who's on record as being, first of all, having worked for the FAI for a very, very long time, for the old regime, but secondly also saying it's a super federation and it's one of their best. That's not what we want to see. We want to see someone new, not someone embedded in the old culture.
I like the photo, by the way.
Yeah, so if anybody's just listening to us, it was a photograph of John Delaney and Shane Ross standing side by side. Shane Ross in his dicky bow. It was obviously at an event. He dressed up, he was smiling, he looked happy. Happier times.
Didn't have his arm around him though.
No.
Saved himself with that one.
Yeah, absolutely. The first round draw for the football qualifiers, Monaghan and Fermanagh. I think we've decided in the office that that's the pick of the first round ties. Monaghan against Fermanagh.
Can I just go back to this, because this is important. It's Shane Ross speaking on News Talk months and months ago, like 6 months ago. My own experience on the ground, this is Shane Ross' weekly experience on the weekends, is that the fans are very enthusiastic about what the FAI are doing. They think the FAI are doing a very good job. I don't hear people giving out. I read about it in the press, all right. There's a lot of criticism about John Delaney. My own experience is that when I go to these local games in the constituency on the ground, is that I see John Delaney and representatives of the FAI all the time. They're always on the ground doing things relating to those really important things that young people are doing. That's what Shane Ross said when it was, popular and the right thing for him to be seen to be doing, to say about John Delaney. Noel Mooney's saying something similar. Noel Mooney's not allowed to say what he said in the past, even though it was obviously a speech written and approved by John Delaney. But Shane Ross is grand to change his mind because somebody's now told him what to say.
You could have read out those quotes and said, that's what Michael Healy-Rae said in the Oireachtas hearing in March, and I'd be like, oh yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Like that's how it sounds, the whole on the ground, this fella shows up at a lot of local soccer clubs, therefore he is a great man. Like, that's the logic he uses there. Fair enough if you want to change your mind. Fair enough if he wants to come out and say, actually, new information has come to light. I've done a bit more work. I've done a bit more talking to people. And actually, I've changed my mind. Fair enough. But if he's not granting the opportunity for other people to perhaps do that as well, then there's a tad more than a bit of hypocrisy there.
Yeah.
Okay, so Monaghan and Fermanagh at the pick of the round 1 All-Ireland football qualifiers, which will be played on the 8th and 9th of June. The winners of Kildare and Longford, who obviously have to replay, or the losers rather, will travel to Carlow. Westmeath have been handed a home tie against Waterford. Louth will face Antrim. Tipperary will have home advantage against Down. Leitrim against Wicklow. Wexford against Derry, and then Offaly will play London. So we'll get the confirmation of the exact times, dates and venues, I'm sure, at some stage this afternoon.
I think we might actually have Tip at home to Down. Oh, sorry, you're right. You said that. Sorry, it was reported elsewhere this morning that Down were at home to Tip. That actually, in front of me, that changes everything, really. That's the other game at around after Monaghan and Fermanagh.
Is it? Are Tip as good as we thought they were, but they just got hammered by Limerick, so...
Well, I would, in Newry, you definitely would have given Down the advantage, but home advantage in Tip, I think it kind of swings it almost the other way. I think there's no way Tip are as bad as we saw against
Was it Tip Down, that amazing game a couple of years ago? Was that?
Tip Armagh. Yeah, before Tip made the quarterfinals the year they made a semi-final.
Yeah, even the Wexford and Derry game, I can remember Wexford beating Derry, like a Derry team.
When Matty Ford's special?
And when Paddy Bradley would have been playing for Derry, and then I think no sooner were they out, he was off to Boston to play football, which you can't do nowadays.
No.
As you lads alluded to.
Or you can just not play for your inter-county team, which, you know. What are the law of unintended consequences?
Well, the only point of going to the States is like puff the chest out in kind of uptown New York saying I play county. What's the point of that if you don't get to play county before you go over to New York?
The money, Owen, the money.
There is no point. It's all about the glory.
Well, we'll mention Kildare and Longford. Obviously, they're going to have to replay their Leinster Championship quarter-final in Tullamore next Sunday because of yesterday's draw at the same venue. Finished Kildare 121, Longford 315. Laois booked their place in the last 4 of the Leinster Championship with a 12 points to 10 win over Westmeath. So Laois will play Meath in the semi-finals of Leinster. Donegal will face Tyrone in the semi-finals of the Ulster Football Championship. Donegal beat Fermanagh by 15 points to 9 at Brewster Park. Paddy McBrearty, on his return from injury to inter-county football, scored 5 points. Wexford hurling manager Davy Fitzgerald believes the side should have won despite trailing by 6 points to Galway at half-time. Finished 16 points apiece at Pearse Stadium, so that's 2 draws from 2 for Wexford in the Leinster round robin. The Wexford manager obviously unhappy one of his players was taken out off the ball by a Galway player, and he made his feelings known to the officials. Then referee Johnny Murphy sent Davy Fitz to the stand, and after the game Davy talked to Maura Trosny-Callig, and this is what he had to say about the incident.
That's the second time in a row that we have had a fella taken out off the ball. It happened in the last one here as well, yet there seems to be one rule for one set of management and another for another. I'm actually seeding at the officials again. Didn't abuse him. I was making my point quite clearly that our lad was taken out off the ball. They ended up getting a score, and that's not right.
Aston Villa and Derby meet at Wembley at 3 o'clock this afternoon in the Championship playoff final. The winning team will not only secure a place in the Premier League, but they're set to earn around £170 million for promotion. Villa lost to Fulham in last season's Championship playoff final, and Villa captain Jack Grealish says he's determined to make amends for that defeat.
It was the worst feeling ever. I always remember I was absolutely shattered at the end. Never nice to lose a final, especially a final as big as that. I've played there in the semi-final and the final of the FA Cup, but for some reason I think the playoff final was probably the biggest. I think it's one of the most expensive games in club football.
Should be a good one. Look, I love the fact that it's a Monday again. This Saturday.
Monday evening, like, at least give us all a chance to get home.
Well, it's their bank holiday, not ours. They just rub it in our faces that they're all off work today. I've just been given very reliable information about Mayo on Saturday night. We can put it to him on the shot clock this week. I unfortunately won't be here to ask myself, so you'll have to ask him, Ger. Apparently Kieran Donaghy walked into a chipper in Westport on Saturday night. There was a Mayo fan very upset in the chipper, and upon seeing Kieran Donaghy, she just simply burst into tears.
I'd be wondering, what's Kieran doing in a chipper?
Well,
he's supervising.
He's no longer an athlete.
With one of his Sky colleagues or something.
He's allowed now, you know.
That could have been it, actually. Yeah. He was saying, lads, it's the best chipper in Westport.
Are you done?
No, sorry. Speaking of expenses in football, Manchester City chairman Khaldoon Al-Mubarak insists the club have cooperated with UEFA's investigation into whether they've broken financial fair play rules. City could obviously face a Champions League ban if found guilty. And speaking to City TV, he said that they have responded to UEFA in the right way.
Am I uncomfortable? No. I think I respect regulatory bodies doing their job. And any regulatory process that asks questions, we have to, I think, professionally respond to, which is what we've done.
Now, Newcastle have refused to comment on reports that owner Mike Ashley's agreed to sell the club to Dubai-based billionaire Sheikh Khaled for £350 million. And who is Sheikh Khaled? He's a cousin of Manchester City's Arab owner Sheikh Mansour, and Sheikh Khaled is said to be a senior member of the Abu Dhabi royal family, and apparently failed in a £2 million takeover of Liverpool last year. Could be an injury blow for Chelsea ahead of the Europa League final against Arsenal on Wednesday night. N'Golo Kante suffered a fresh injury in training over the weekend. He's obviously missed the last couple of games with a hamstring injury, but it's believed he injured his knee in training, so we don't know if he's going to be fit in time for that final in Baku. 4 quarter-finals tonight in the EA Sports Cup. Holders Derry City are at home to Finn Harps. League leaders Dundalk welcome UCD to Oriel Park. Bohemians take on Cork City at Dalymount Park, and it's Bray Wanderers against Waterford. Those games all underway at 7:45. And the French Open is up and running. Roger Federer won yesterday in the first round. Rafa Nadal, going for his 12th title at Roland Garros, gets his quest underway today. Novak Djokovic and Serena Williams also in first round action as well later on. All right, good stuff, Phil. A reminder that we're live across all our social channels and on News Talk Radio from 7 o'clock tonight. Brian O'Driscoll in, reflecting on the end of Sean O'Brien's Ireland and Leinster career. A bit more detail after the news came out, obviously, that he's going to miss the World Cup with the hip injury. Loads more stuff looking back at the weekend's GA action live from 7 as well. And as ever, if you missed any of this show, you can watch it back on otb.com, offtheball.com, or of course on YouTube every morning. We also have an audio-only stream of the show on the website. So if you just want us to be a radio accompaniment, then we can do that for you. You can search OTB AM on your podcast app or Spotify to get any of the stuff that you might have missed as well. We're going to play out with this. It's a beautiful little film featuring Dara Kaneja and Dermot Ling talking about coastal communities and how we can protect those communities. It's all part of the Clean Coasts. We're at Clean Coast encouraging people to engage with their communities and look after their coastlines. You can join Clean Coast and register your beach clean today at cleancoasts.org or check out the hashtag Clean Coasts.
I'm delighted that Coca-Cola have teamed up with Clean Coast for this year's Coca-Cola Clean Coast Week. Running from the 1st to the 9th of June, the aim is to encourage and to empower local communities all over the country to get out and engage with their local precious maritime resources. Yeah, it is. It's a thing here. Like, people are they involve themselves here.
Yeah, it's a sign that people around here are proud of their local area. As you see, we're right on the coastline. It is a renowned fishing village, and it has been for some time. I'm Dara Kaneja. We're here in Ballingowl, right alongside the coast here in West Kerry. It is, as you can see in the background, possibly a fishing village, not as strong as it used to be, but it is a place where people are deeply connected to their coastline and deeply connected to the traditions of the sea around them.
What memories do you have of here as a young fella, Dara? What role has the GA played in you coming to who you are now?
This place here was our Mecca. This was the place of pilgrimage, really, when we were kids. You know, half of our parish would live 7 miles north, 6 miles north, 5 miles north of here. The other half would be just likewise 7, 8 miles the other side. So this is the central focal point of our few parishes. It's where we trained as kids. It's storied location here in terms of the development of this pitch happened when we were kids. It was almost a reclamation project from what was sand dunes. It's a very sandy base, and it's tied in with the community because it was a huge community effort at the time in the early 1980s to build this pitch, to get all the rocks and stones out of here to get an actual flat playing surface that would sustain the playing of Gaelic football mostly.
I think that's what, for something like Clean Coast, like to bring people, and in a very sincere way, like to cross that divide between this understanding we have of what needs to be done for the environment, this understanding, an intellectualised version of what needs to happen versus the actual action, like the choices you make as a consumer, the choices you make in what you do with your free time, the choice, or even the feeling to actually care, like to actually sincerely allow yourself to care about it.
These are values that are intrinsically embedded in you as a kid when you play Gaelic games. It's all about giving back. Yes, when you're playing, you're getting something. You're getting exercise, you're getting camaraderie, you're getting a sense of community spirit. But it's the greatest feeling in the world afterwards when you can't get that anymore, you're finished playing, that you can give something back, to get what you got of those that gave it to you. So you give back to the next generation, and that's a huge part. It's a great feeling when you actually don't get anything from it, only just get the giving of it, the giving of your time, the giving of your energy, the giving of, you know, something that's valuable that you can actually give that doesn't actually have a monetary value. And that's what the GA is all about, and I'm sure that's what the Clean Coast campaign is about. It's only a small period in time that you're in bloom, and just like a flower, you know, and it's such a universal truth. Like, you have your opportunity. Every day is a gift. Not so much creating a legacy, but actually respecting what came before you and handing it on for those who come after you.
Throughout this week, Coca-Cola, along with Antashka and Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful, are encouraging people to get out and to engage with their communities by taking care of their waterways and looking after their coastlines. It's up to each of us individually to take responsibility for how we dispose of our waste, to make conscious decisions as consumers. For more information, check out liveherelovehere.org or cleancoast.org. Garmila Mahagif.